Chapter 379. In the end, Zhu Zhuqing had really learned what Lin Feng had taught her before. Facing Hulk's attack, she was very flexible, playing to her strengths and avoiding her weaknesses. Although the whole battle was a little thrilling, she still defeated Hulk in the end. Lin Feng nodded slightly. Zhu Zhuqing had learned well. Although there were some flaws, she was generally excellent. In the second round, Shrek Academy won. On the Martial Spirit Hall's side, Evil Moon was frowning. Originally, he thought that their final opponent would be Shrek Academy. As for the Avengers, they basically didn't care much about them. But now, after watching the two matches, he found that the Avengers were extremely strong. The first round ended so quickly because Sun Chuantao was careless, but the second round showed their true strength. In this case, Evil Moon and the others had to use all their strength. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to get first place. If they competed with the other team for the finals, their Martial Spirit Hall would lose face. Moreover, they had just lost the first round, so the second person had to regain some face. Thinking of this, Evil Moon nodded to Yen. "You go, show them what you've got. Watch me." Yen clenched her fists and stepped onto the square with a relaxed face. Yan's martial spirit was the Flame Lord, a relatively special variant martial spirit. After the martial spirit possessed her whole body was covered in flames, which was extremely hot and restrained Zhu Zhuqing. The main reason was that there was no shadow around her, so Zhu Zhuqing couldn't sneak attack her. If she rushed up directly, Yen could use her fire AoE to easily injure Zhu Zhuqing. Evil Moon sent her out because of this point. Moreover, Zhu Zhuqing had just fought Hulk and consumed more than half of her soul power, so Yen could easily beat her. However, because of the Martial Spirit Hall's defeat just now, Yen was more competitive at this time. Taking advantage of her competitiveness, Zhu Zhuqing cleverly used tactics to dodge several of her soul skills and consumed some of her soul power. Yan's soul skills missed a few times, and she was a little irritable. However, she was still restrained by Zhu Zhuqing's martial soul. Furthermore, Zhu Zhuqing's soul power was too little, so she was quickly defeated. Although the Martial Spirit Palace won this round, it wasn't a beautiful victory. The main reason was that Yan's mentality was still a little broken. Everyone from Shrek was elated to see this. On the other hand, Evil Moon looked gloomy. Originally, this individual elimination match was supposed to be a show for the Martial Spirit Palace. But now, not to mention performing, even winning was a problem. He felt that the two academies might join forces to deal with them, but there was no other way. The Martial Spirit Palace would never admit defeat. If they admitted defeat, the Avengers would most likely emerge victorious. After that, they would have to face Shrek's 7 monsters in the afternoon's team competition. Evil Moon had already guessed that Shrek's 7 monsters wouldn't be any weaker than them. If they were to fight again in the afternoon, he felt that the Spirit Hall Academy would have a long way to go. Therefore, they had to win the individual competition. But this competition system, it was very uncomfortable to be targeted. At this moment, Evil Moon suddenly felt that this competition system was very unfair. But this competition system was agreed upon by the 2 empires and the Pope's palace. He didn't dare to say anything. Just as he was thinking about this, the Avengers sent out the second person, Thunder God Saul. If Yan's martial soul was restrained by Zhu Zhuqing, then Saul's Thunder God's hammer was more than 300% restrained by the Lord of the Flames. Thunder-type attacks were too strong. Not only could they restrain fire, but they could also restrain water and wood. It was very powerful. Yan's expression changed the moment he saw Saul appear. In fact, he was a little afraid that Zhu Zhuqing would go up when he appeared. But at that time, he was the only one who could restrain Zhu Zhuqing, so he went up. They only hoped that the Avengers didn't discover this. Unfortunately, they weren't stupid and sent Saul up in the end. However, it wasn't that Yen had no hope of winning. He had a 5th soul skill more than Saul and had a higher soul power rank. In the eyes of everyone, the two of them could only be said to be evenly matched. Yen even had a slight advantage. After all, the fifth soul skill was much stronger than the first four soul skills. Neither of them spoke. As soon as the referee called for the start, they directly fought. Sol was a strong attacker. His martial soul was restrained here. Even if there was a gap in soul power, it was not a problem at all. He just needed to hammer it. On Yan's side, almost 1/5 of his soul power had been consumed by Zhu Zhuqing just now. At this time, Sol didn't hesitate at all. A minute later, the two of them seemed to be evenly matched, and there was no clear winner. At 2 minutes, Yen found an opportunity to release his fifth soul skill and directly attack Sol. However, Sol dodged easily, and taking advantage of the fact that his opponent had just released a powerful soul skill and hadn't reacted, he hit Yen with his hammer and seriously injured him. The winner was decided in an instant. Just a second ago, everyone saw Yen find an opportunity to release his fifth soul skill and thought he was going to win. But what they didn't expect was that Sol was also waiting for this opportunity. He easily dodged and counterattacked. It was a classic operation. This surprised many people, but in the eyes of Bibi Dong and the others, they had already expected it. Sol's control of soul power was too strong. That soul skill was just right. Bibi Dong knew that the final winner of the individual competition would definitely be the Avengers. After thinking for a while, he transmitted a message to Evil Moon. The latter was originally very angry, but after hearing the message, he was stunned for a moment. Then, he nodded respectfully. After dragging Yen, who was still twitching slightly, down, he shouted to the referee, "The Martial Spirit Hall Academy admits defeat. We will participate in the losers group competition in the afternoon." This was the message from the Pope just now, asking him to admit defeat. Evil Moon also knew that it was too difficult to continue fighting. Even if they won and lost, their Martial Spirit Hall people would probably all be injured in the end. If they lost, they would lose no matter who they met in the afternoon. Therefore, it was better to admit defeat now to preserve most of their strength and wait for the team competition in the afternoon. In fact, Evil Moon had thought about admitting defeat before, but if Shrek Academy also admitted defeat, they wouldn't have the advantage. More importantly, this was their Martial Spirit Hall's home court. Directly surrendering? He felt that he would lose all his face. But now that the Pope had asked him to admit defeat, it was fine. He would unconditionally obey the Pope's words. Admit defeat? Then should I continue? Ma Hongjun tilted his head doubtfully. He was prepared to fight a war of attrition, relying on his long-range attack to consume Sol's soul power. But suddenly, the Martial Spirit Hall people admitted defeat, which disrupted Tang San's previous tactic. No need, we also admit defeat and join the losers group with the Martial Spirit Hall, Tang San said with a smile. But, I feel that we can win. Sol's soul power has been consumed a lot. If I go up and consume more soul power, Boss Dai can easily defeat all three of them. When the third brother comes, we will definitely win. Ma Hongjun said with some hesitation. According to the performance of the Avengers, the strongest were Hulk, Sol, and Captain Steve. The others would be weaker. Actually, if they took down Sol, they really had a chance to win. Tang San certainly knew this. He said with a smile, "In this way there is a high chance of winning, but by then, the strength I have deliberately hidden for so long will be exposed. It's better for you to use a martial soul fusion skill in the losers group to end the battle quickly. In the finals, I will use my full strength and take them by surprise." Also, the Martial Spirit Hall team admitted defeat. They probably want to fight with us. They probably think that we are weaker in the team competition. In fact, our team competition is much stronger than the individual competition. In the afternoon, we will use 2 martial soul fusion skills to crush them. What Tang San wanted to do was to hide the news that he had broken through to Soul King. In this way, the Avengers would definitely focus on Dai Mubai. As for martial soul fusion skills, now that there were 3 strong teams, it might be a good thing to expose 2, because the Avengers would very likely think that they had used their full strength. At that time, Tang San would show his strength as a Soul King and release a martial soul fusion skill. With a sudden attack, they would definitely be able to take them by surprise. Tang San's words made everyone nod, so Ma Hongjun also ran up and shouted, "Referee, we also admit defeat and enter the losers group in the afternoon." Both sides directly admitted defeat in advance, allowing one team to directly qualify for the finals. This kind of situation had never happened before. Although many people expected it when the Martial Spirit Hall Academy admitted defeat, when Ma Hongjun said it himself, they still felt that it was unreal. Although the referee was stunned for a moment, he still directly announced the victory of the Avengers. Fang Huai and several teachers of the Oakland Academy were excited. Tang San's team didn't have any reaction, but they paid more attention to the Avengers. Evil Moon frowned. The thing he didn't want to see happened. Tang San's team really admitted defeat. In the afternoon, the battle between the 2 teams would definitely be a tough one. Evil Moon's team would definitely use their full strength, and in that way, someone would definitely be seriously injured. Yan's injury wasn't very serious, and he could recover in an hour or 2. But if he was seriously injured, like Sun Chuantao, he wouldn't be able to recover for a few days. This would definitely affect tomorrow's competition. But now that the result was out, it was useless to think about it. It was better to let the healing-type Soul Masters heal the team members. The losers group competition would start in the afternoon, and now, all 3 teams had left the square. Because the end was too sudden, there were still 4 or 5 hours before the start of the afternoon competition, which gave everyone some buffer time. In the resting area, Lin Feng used his martial soul to restore everyone's soul power. Zhu Zhuqing, who was a little injured before, was also healed now. Feng Go is still the best. With Feng Go by our side, even if we don't participate in the competition, we can still win the competition, Xiao Wu said with a smile. Everyone nodded and agreed with this sentence. With Lin Feng's recovery ability, they could fight with ease. Injuries were not a problem at all. They could even fight with injuries. I can only help you recover after the competition. Don't think about it during the competition. You can't be careless, Lin Feng said casually. At this time, he was thinking about one thing. Would Bibi Dong make a move in advance? During the competition just now, Bibi Dong looked at him a few times. That gaze felt a little strange, as if he was staring at him. Didn't he just look at her a few more times when he appeared just now? Was it wrong for him to admire a beauty? Just now, the ghost suddenly left. Lin Feng had a clone flying in the air to check on the situation in Martial Spirit City. He saw the ghost leading people around the city. They should be looking for something. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng figured it out. They should be looking for his Doctor Strange incarnation. It seemed that the performance of the Avengers just now was too much of a genius, which made Bibi Dong a little afraid. Now that the ghost was looking for him, he should be trying to rope him in. But unfortunately, the ghost couldn't find him because the incarnation had been put away by Lin Feng. At this time, because he knew that the situation was tense and that a big battle could break out immediately, Lin Feng didn't dare to be careless at all. He didn't use his mental power if he could. The 7 clones over there were all meditating with their eyes closed. In fact, 6 of them were empty shells. Lin Feng only controlled 1 clone to be on guard. If something happened, or if someone came looking for him, he would take full control of the situation. This power-saving mode allowed Lin Feng to maintain his mental power and be ready to fight at any time. Feng Go, don't worry, we will definitely win the championship. When the time comes, I will help you win that 50,000-year soul bone back, Tang San suddenly said. Hearing this, everyone hurriedly said, That's right, Feng Go, you have helped us so much. This time, if we win the competition, that 50,000-year mental power skull of wisdom will belong to none other than you. Master also smiled and said, this skull is very precious. Because it's a skull soul bone, I reckon that only other 100,000-year soul bones from other parts of the body can compare to it. I think it's very suitable for little Feng. He deserves it. No one would not want such a top-grade soul bone. Zhao Wuji, Flender, Grandmaster, and the others were all tempted. But at the same time, they knew that Lin Feng was worthy of it. Let alone a skull soul bone, even if all three of them belonged to him, it was only right. However, according to his past performance, those 10,000-year soul bones might not be enough for Lin Feng. Therefore, everyone didn't think too much about it. The most important thing was this skull soul bone. Lin Feng was speechless. To be honest, Lin Feng was a little touched. It was only a 50,000-year soul bone. Lin Feng didn't care about it. However, to others it was extremely precious. At this moment, Tang San and the others were actually willing to give it to him. Furthermore, everyone agreed without any hesitation. This made him feel a little emotional. No need. You guys can use this soul bone. I don't need it. Mr. Destroy will help me find one in the future. Lin Feng smiled. The main reason was that a 50,000-year soul bone was too weak. Lin Feng didn't care about it. Otherwise, if it was really good, he would have accepted it long ago. In the eyes of the others, Lin Feng was trying to shirk responsibility. A 50,000-year skull soul bone. It was so precious. No matter how powerful Mr. Destroy was, he wouldn't be able to get it so easily. Although they didn't win the competition, their discussion at this moment was definitely sincere. Lin Feng didn't want it. He must be thinking for them. Feng Ge was too good to them. He didn't even want such a precious soul bone. For a moment, everyone was very touched. Feng Ge, you're my brother from now on. You're too good to us. However, you have to accept this soul bone. You deserve it. Ma Hongjun was so touched that his eyes turned red. Xiao Wu also said, that's right, Feng Ge. This is what you deserve. We won't have any objections. Lin Feng was speechless. He didn't want it, but he was still forced to give it to him. He was touched, but a little helpless. You guys haven't gotten the soul bone yet. You'd better focus on the competition. We'll talk about it after you win the championship. Lin Feng shook his head. Hearing this, everyone was excited. They knew that they would win the championship. During the break, Bibi Dong and the others returned to the Pope's palace. About 2 hours later, Ghost Charm arrived in front of Bibi East, feeling slightly nervous. Your Holiness, I've searched Martial Spirit City and didn't find Dr. Strange. Do you want to go to the rest area and ask the group of children? It'll be more convenient that way. Gui Mei meant to go to the rest area to find the Avengers and ask them where Dr. Strange was. You're so brazen. Do you think the organizing committee is blind? Bibi Dong said calmly. The organizing committee was made up of representatives from the Heaven Do Empire and the Star Luo Empire. Dusty Heart and Ning Fengji were also part of the organizing committee. They were all on the VIP platform. Their purpose was to monitor this competition and prevent cheating. During the finals, the teams from the various academies were not allowed to interact with other teams and the people from the Martial Spirit Palace. Otherwise, it would be a violation of the rules. No matter what they do, they are not allowed to go to the Avengers like this. Actually, they could look for Feng Huai. However, Bibi Dong knew that Feng Huai was just a nobody. He didn't know anything. He probably didn't talk much with the Avengers. It was useless to look for him. Then, Gui Mei lowered his head and didn't know what to say. Bibi Dong didn't make things difficult for him. Instead, he suddenly said, I want you to investigate someone from the Shrek Academy. His name is Lin Feng. I want to know about him. Yes. Gui Mei nodded and left without saying anything else. That was how he did things. He spoke little and was very capable. Because of this, Bibi Dong would ask Gui Mei to do some small things instead of Yu Guan. After Gui Mei left, Bibi Dong recalled Lin Feng's gaze in the morning. Who was this guy? Why did he look at someone like the Pope like that? Furthermore, Bibi Dong had a very strange feeling that the kid wasn't weak. There was no actual basis. It was just a very special intuition, an intuition that belonged to her twin martial souls. She had an inexplicable feeling that Lin Feng wasn't weak. However, he didn't seem to be very old. That was why Bibi Dong asked Gui Mei to investigate him. Chapter 380. Gui Mei went to investigate Lin Feng. This was very easy. There were still many people from the Heaven Do Empire in the city. He easily found out about the Shrek Academy from these people. While Gui Mei was investigating, Bibi Dong was also making the final arrangements. Tomorrow was the most important time. She had to plan carefully and how to act. At the same time, Bibi Dong felt that there was something wrong with Qianrenxue. It wasn't a recent feeling. It had been a while. Although Yingluan's feedback was normal, some of their actions in the past 6 months made Bibi Dong a little suspicious. He felt that there was an ulterior motive, but it didn't seem like betrayal. Therefore, Bibi Dong was a little suspicious. However, this was an important time. Although there was a problem with Qianrenxue, it wasn't very big. She could put it aside for now. The most important thing now was to deal with these teams. Bibi Dong felt that the Martial Soul Hall's team might not be able to win the championship. They might not even be able to get second place. This would be very embarrassing. Furthermore, how should he deal with these two teams in the future? Tang San had to be killed. As for the other people in the Shrek Academy, he didn't have to care about them. Although they were geniuses, they weren't at the level where the Martial Soul Hall had to kill them. Furthermore, a few of them had powerful backgrounds. It wasn't appropriate for the Martial Soul Hall to fall out with these people. As for the Avengers, he had to control them first. He didn't want to offend them. He had to serve them well and force Doctor Strange out. When the time came, he would make a decision based on the situation. There shouldn't be any accidents. Bibi Dong had specially hired a consecrated to keep an eye on him. In tomorrow's plan, the Martial Soul Hall would send 7 elders at once. When the time came, there would be 9 titled Dolu. There wouldn't be any accidents. Just as Bibi Dong was thinking about this, Gui Mei quietly appeared. Reporting to the Pope, we have investigated Lin Feng's information, Gui Mei said respectfully. Speak. Bibi Dong nodded slightly. Lin Feng is also a student of the Shrek Academy. He's about the same age as Shrek's 7 monsters, and he's deeply respected by them. Even Grandmaster seems to think highly of him. Aside from that, we also discovered that Thanos seems to be related to Lin Feng. Furthermore, Dugu Bo only became a teacher at the Shrek Academy not long after Lin Feng and the others arrived in Heaven Do City. Furthermore, it's very likely that Dugu Bo came to Martial Spirit City because of Lin Feng. What Gui Mei said, some of it was heard from others, and some of it was his own guess. When Bibi Dong heard this, he frowned slightly. Then, he waved his hand and said, "You can leave. I need some time alone." Yes. Gui Mei didn't drag on. He cupped his hands and retreated. At this time, in the room, Bibi Dong felt a headache coming. This Lin Feng is actually related to Tang San? And he's his older brother? Lin Feng is also related to Thanos. She suspected that Thanos is related to Doctor Strange. With all these connections, and Tang Hao, who is a titled Dolu, could all these people be from the Clear Sky sect? Bibi Dong couldn't be blamed for making such a guess. After all, there weren't many hidden forces on the continent that were so powerful. The Clear Sky sect should be one of them. In addition, the people from the Avengers were too talented. They didn't seem to have much respect for the Martial Spirit Hall, especially that Lin Feng. He even looked at her, the Pope, with a hint of scrutiny. Ordinary forces couldn't nurture someone like him. However, this Lin Feng shouldn't be Tang Hao's son. Tang Hao couldn't have nurtured someone like Lin Feng. Bibi Dong guessed that this Lin Feng might be related to Tang Chen. Tang Chen was the legendary sect master of the Clear Sky sect. He was most likely dead, but Bibi Dong guessed that he might still be alive, and Lin Feng should be related to him. This Thanos and Doctor Strange might have been nurtured by him. If her guess was correct, this Tang San and Lin Feng had to be killed. And the 7 people from the Avengers. To be safe, it was best to kill them too. If Tang Chen really nurtured these strong people, he might make a move tomorrow, but Bibi Dong wasn't too worried. If nothing unexpected happened, Tang Chen's strength might have reached the peak of rank 99. If a strong person of this level appeared, the Thousand Dao School would deal with him. And Bibi Dong guessed that even if it was really Tang Chen, he wouldn't make a move. After all, the titled Dolua above rank 96 was generally pursuing the realm of gods. They generally didn't care about some things in the world of soul masters. The worship of the martial spirit hall was like this, and so was the Thousand Dao School. But that Thanos felt like an anomaly. He was so strong, and his soul power was at least rank 97. Logically speaking, such a strong person should be concentrating on cultivation, but he often liked to fight. And this Doctor Strange was even more ferocious. He threatened to challenge the entire continent. These 2 people felt very strange. They were too aggressive. But this wasn't the main point. The main point was that when they wanted to kill Tang San tomorrow, they might encounter a lot of resistance. For a moment, Bibi Dong felt that the arrangements tomorrow were not enough. They had to send another group of Soul Masters. Not only the titled Dolua, but the Soul Masters also had to be arranged around the area. Those Soul Masters still in the Martial Spirit City had to be chased out. This way their actions wouldn't be exposed. In fact, Bibi Dong had thought of canceling this plan. After all, there was something that made her a little afraid. Dugu Bo's strength had increased. He suddenly reached rank 95 from rank 91. This speed was simply terrifying. The main thing was that Bibi Dong still didn't know what was going on. Even an immortal medicine shouldn't be able to achieve such an effect. Because of the unknown, she was actually very worried about this. If it weren't for Tang Hao, Bibi Dong would definitely try her best to rope in this group of people. Unfortunately, the Martial Spirit Hall and Tang San had become mortal enemies. This Tang San had to be killed. The morning passed very quickly. At noon, everyone ate a good meal and then recuperated. At 3:00 in the afternoon, everyone gathered in the plaza again. The semi-finals of the Continental Elite Academy Tournament are about to begin. Both teams, please get ready. The tournament will officially begin in 15 minutes. The red-robed bishop's referee shouted loudly. Hearing this, the team members of both teams cheered each other on. Tang San and the others were very relaxed. They had also recovered to their peak condition. At this moment, they were all smiling and discussing how to challenge the Avengers tomorrow. Of course, in the last few minutes, they also seriously analyzed the possible responses of the 7 members of the Martial Spirit Hall and how to quickly end the battle when the time came. They didn't think that the Martial Spirit Hall's team was very strong, but even a lion would use all its strength to catch a rabbit. They were still prepared. On the other hand, Evil Moon couldn't compete because of Sun Chuantao's serious injury. He could only temporarily substitute a rank 43 soul ancestor. This guy was also a substitute. Because he wasn't an official member, his cooperation was a little weaker, but he was still very strong. At this moment, Evilmoon's face was slightly gloomy as he saw Shrek's 7 monsters laughing and chatting. However, he still turned around and smiled at his team members. This match is very important to us. His Holiness the Pope and the Elders are watching. We don't just need to win one match, we need to win 2 matches in a row. Moreover, we need to win beautifully and cleanly, not giving them the slightest chance. The final championship will be ours. We are. As he spoke, Evil Moon stretched out his hand. Everyone stepped forward and shouted at the same time, "Champions!" Not far away, Xiao Wu heard the shouts and pursed her lips. They are shouting loudly. We have to shout louder too. Yes. Suppress their momentum, Ma Hongjun said excitedly. Everyone nodded and put their hands together. Then, they shouted in a louder voice than Evelmun's team, "Shrek Academy will win." After all, they were just a group of young people, and they were very competitive. At this moment, everyone looked over in a provocative manner, as if they were saying that they were the strongest. Lin Feng and the Grandmaster looked at this scene and smiled like old fathers. On the other hand, Evelmun's team looked gloomy, but they didn't say anything. Just like this, 15 minutes passed quickly. Shrek's 7 monsters and Evelmun's team walked up and came to the center of the square. Everyone in the audience also looked over. This was the semi-finals, and no one didn't take it seriously. The match is about to begin. Both teams, you can release your martial souls. The cardinal stood in the middle and shouted. Both sides didn't hesitate and released their martial souls one after another. However, in terms of soul rings, Evelmun's team on the right all released their soul rings. The 3 soul kings had 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 1 black rings, and the other 4 soul ancestors also had 2 yellow and 2 purple rings. All 7 of them had perfect soul rings and were very powerful. On the left, Dai Mubai had 2 yellow and 2 purple rings, and most of the others also had 2 yellow and 2 purple rings. However, Xiao Wu's 4th black 10,000-year soul ring made Evelmun's and the others' hearts sink. They already knew this information. Not only Xiao Wu, but also Tang San, both had 10,000-year soul rings. But now, Tang San only summoned his martial soul and didn't reveal his soul ring. Everyone didn't see his 10,000-year soul ring. But his 4th soul ring is actually 10,000 year. Not everyone in the arena knew about this news. After seeing Xiao Wu's soul ring, there were quite a few people who exclaimed in surprise. The referee was also taken aback, but soon, he shouted, "Let the match begin." At the same time as the order was given, the cardinal quickly retreated and left the ring. In the square, the 2 sides instantly fought. At this time, it was all about strength, and there was no need to hide anything. Evil Moon and Tang San actually had the same idea. They had to go all out from the beginning. Evil Moon and Hulaina instantly approached each other and used their martial soul fusion skill. This martial soul fusion skill was one of their trump cards. They had never used it before, but now they wanted to catch their opponents off guard. The 2 were like Ultraman, directly colliding with each other and emitting a red light. The red light was not a light source, but a light curtain. After the light curtain appeared, it quickly spread. When Evil Moon and Hulaina collided, the light curtain enveloped them. In the next second, the red light curtain also burst out like a big bowl, covering most of the square. At the same time, the amplification soul skill of the auxiliary-type teammates also blessed the 2. This was Evil Moon and Hulaina's martial soul fusion skill, called Bewitching Charm. When this soul skill was released, the 2 would merge into one and temporarily become one person. A person with long hair fluttering in the wind, and it was difficult to distinguish the gender. It was very bewitching. The effect was also very powerful. Within the range of this red light curtain, everyone's senses would become sluggish, and the strength of their soul power would weaken. The suppression effect was almost halved, which was very powerful. The most important thing was that within this range, except for Evil Moon and Hulaina, everyone else could not see anything. This light curtain covered half of the square in an instant, including everyone from the Shrek Academy. Although their eyes were covered, they did not panic at all. When Evil Moon and Hulaina released their martial soul fusion skill, the 7 of them also moved. Dai Mubai directly activated his White Tiger Shinrock shield and blocked in front, then Ma Hongjun leaned forward and also released his martial soul fusion skill. This time, it was not Dai Mubai who took the lead, but Ma Hongjun. His whole body was covered in flames, and the White Tiger Phantom appeared, and a huge aura suppressed the whole square. Under the raging flames, a small vacuum area was burned out of the pink light curtain, and Dai Mubai could see about 5 meters around him. Ning Rongrong first blessed everyone with an amplification skill, and at the same time, she held Zhu Zhuqing's hand and released her martial soul fusion skill. 9 colored light poured into Zhu Zhuqing's body, supporting him like a fairy. At the same time, Zhu Zhuqing's soul bone skill, secluded night eye, was activated, and his originally obscured vision was instantly restored. In the center of everyone, Tang San did not move. He only opened his purple demon eyes to observe the whole square, and his blue-silver grass spread out. Xiao Wu came to Dai Mubai's side, ready to attack at any time. Oscar, who was at the back, quickly made sausages. Although he could not see, he did not panic at all when he was beside Tang San. At this moment, the combination of Evil Moon and Hu Laiina quickly launched an attack, and the Moonblade in their hands attacked everyone. In their minds, Shrek's 7 monsters would definitely panic after the bewitching charm soul skill was activated, and if they suddenly attacked at this time, even if they were not completely wiped out, it would not be a problem to seriously injure 2 or 3 people. Moreover, their soul skill was extremely powerful. Unless one could fly, it would be very difficult to escape. Their teammates didn't even need to go, and the 2 of them could rely on this martial soul fusion skill to control the whole square. Even if the soul skill disappeared because of insufficient soul power, it would be fine. Shrek's 7 monsters would probably only have 2 or 3 people left. Then it would be impossible to make a comeback, and they still had 5 teammates. Just like that, the 2 of them rushed in excitedly with this thought in mind. They had even predicted that Dai Mubai would be killed in one move. Then, whoosh, 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 Zhu Zhuqing suddenly appeared behind the 2 of them, and then quickly attacked with 3 claws. How is this possible? The 2 of them were shocked. They didn't even have time to resist before they were sent flying by the 3 claws. In fact, at this time, Zhu Zhuqing could still pursue and kill them in one move. Although her soul power and senses were suppressed, she was too strong after using her martial soul fusion skill. Even if she was suppressed, she still had the strength of a soul emperor. Coupled with the restraint of the secluded night eye, Evil Moon and Hu Laiina couldn't resist her attack at all. She didn't pursue at this time just to give her teammates a chance to perform. Zhu Zhuqing forced the 2 of them forward. Dai Mubai took this opportunity to turn the White Tiger Shadow strike into a huge shadow fist and directly smash them to the ground. Ma Hongjun descended from the sky, and the White Tiger Shadow roared and punched their stomachs. Bang! With a muffled sound, Evil Moon and Hu Laiina were directly knocked out of their martial soul fusion state. The surrounding red light curtain also dissipated in an instant, and the situation in the field was displayed in front of everyone. But what happened? Didn't the captain go in and easily defeat the opponent? Why are they lying on the ground as soon as they go in? At this time, the other 5 members of the Martial Soul Palace had the same thought. They were all dumbfounded. Not only them, but Evil Moon and Hu Laiina in the field were also dumbfounded. They didn't understand the situation at all. How did they suddenly get seriously injured? Ma Hongjun didn't hold back in that punch. If the 2 of them weren't in the martial soul fusion state, they might have died directly if they took it alone. Even if they caught it now, the 2 of them were seriously injured and didn't dare to move. And this scene made the whole audience silent. Originally, many people in the Martial Soul Palace thought that the Shrek Academy was going to lose. When the red light curtain disappeared, what was shown should be the scene of the Martial Soul Palace team's victory, and it was a complete victory. However, the result made everyone's jaws drop. The light curtain didn't even last for 5 seconds before it disappeared in an instant, and Evil Moon and Hu Laiina were also seriously injured. Good job! Flanders shouted with a smile on his face. Master, Lu Erlong and the others next to him also laughed very happily. On the VIP platform, Bibi Dong's face was a little gloomy. She could already see that the Martial Soul Palace team was going to lose. They didn't even make it to the final, and they were hailed as the team of the Golden Generation. It was really embarrassing. And just when everyone had different expressions on their faces. In the field, taking advantage of the Martial Soul Palace team's shock, Xiao Wu directly teleported to the opponent's back row. Zhu Zhuqing also followed. The two of them easily killed the remaining members of the Martial Soul Palace team, as if they were chopping melons and vegetables. A few seconds later, only the Shrek's 7 monsters were still standing. The red-robed bishop, who had just become the referee, had a red and white face at this time. He couldn't believe the scene in front of him. The whole game, from the beginning to the end, added up to less than 15 seconds. This kind of blitzkrieg battle that ended so quickly usually happened in a situation where the disparity in strength between the two teams was very large, and the time would also be about half a minute. A battle like this that ended in 15 seconds had never appeared in the finals. At most, it would appear in the first round of the qualifiers. But now it actually appeared in the top 3 of the finals. This was really unbelievable. The winner of the semi-finals of the Continental Elite Academy Tournament is the Shrek Academy. They are qualified to compete with the Oakland Academy for the championship tomorrow. The red-robed bishop's voice was dry, and he wasn't in a good mood. However, Tang San's group of 7 were all very happy. Just as they had imagined, they had easily obtained victory, and Tang San had not revealed anything. In fact, with Evil Moon's team's strength, if they had been more steady, all of them, and were very careful, they wouldn't have lost so quickly. The main reason was that Evil Moon and Hulaina were too arrogant when they used their martial soul fusion skill. They didn't think that Shrek's 7 monsters would be able to discover their position. Evil Moon and Hulaina were like 2 idiots, directly rushing into the crowd. This was no different from the MC flashing into the bushes without vision and then sending his head to the ground. It could be said that Evil Moon's carelessness was the main reason why the Martial Soul Hall Academy lost this time. Of course, they had already lost, so it was useless to talk about this now. At this time, Tang San's team returned with smiles on their faces. The 7 people from the Martial Soul Hall Academy were all seriously injured, and their faces were full of disbelief. Today's competition was over. Dugu Bo, Ning Fengji, and the others ran over to congratulate the Shrek Academy. Flender and the others welcomed them with smiles on their faces, a burst of joy. On the other hand, on Bibi Dong's side, although her face was calm, her heart was very unhappy. In her opinion, without the Martial Soul Hall Academy participating in the finals, it could be said that it was already over. Bibi Dong even thought that the competition could end right away. She could assassinate Tang San and Lin Feng that night. But on second thought, that wouldn't work. If they did that, the 2 empires would unite and attack the Martial Soul Hall Academy. The Martial Soul Hall Academy was strong, but it was still not strong enough to face the 2 empires at the same time. Doluo was strong, but if the 2 empires sent their armies to attack them, the Martial Soul Hall Academy would be swarmed to death. Therefore, it was not the time to turn hostile. Even though the Martial Soul Hall Academy had lost, they still had to fight in the finals the next day. The 3 soul bones had to be given away. The finals would begin the next day. The people in the square gradually dispersed, and Bibi Dong returned to the pontiff's palace. Evil Moon and the others looked gloomy. After they recovered a bit, they went to Bibi Dong to accept their punishment. Evil Moon was the main reason why they lost the competition so quickly. Bibi Dong was still angry. However, Hulaina stood up and took most of the responsibility for her brother. Bibi Dong valued Hulaina very much. She was her disciple, and she even raised her like a daughter. Of course, she didn't punish them in the end. Bibi Dong also knew that the Golden Generation was still a little weaker than Shrek's 7 monsters. No matter how careful they were at that time, they couldn't avoid losing in the end. Bibi Dong thought that Evil Moon and the others could win because Tang San and the others hid their strength too well. Bibi Dong thought that they wouldn't be too strong. Now that he had used 2 martial soul fusion skills, it was really too surprising. Chapter 381. The stronger Tang San and the others were, the more Bibi Dong feared them. He had to kill them tomorrow. As for her 3 disciples, Evil Moon and Yen were slightly weaker than Hu Laina. Now that they had lost, it was up to them to see if they could pass the psychological test. If they could pass, there was still hope for them to break through and become a titled Dolua in the future. As for Hu Laina, Bibi Dong was grooming her to be the next pope. Although she had lost, it didn't mean much. Bibi Dong comforted her with a few words, then let her reflect on her shortcomings in this match. Bibi Dong decided to let Hu Laina train for a period of time, and then send her to the Slaughter City to improve herself. Inside the hotel, it gave people a feeling of emptiness at this moment. The teams from the other academies had all left, leaving only the group from Shrek Academy. Walking in the corridor, there was basically no one to bump into. This kind of atmosphere was somewhat cold and cheerless, and Tang San had a feeling that a storm was coming. But tonight, everyone was still very happy. In a large private room, the Shrek Academy team gathered together. Ning Fengji, Dusty Heart, and Dugu Bo had all come over. Tomorrow was the day of the finals. If he won the competition, he would be able to obtain 3 soul bones and become the champion of the tournament. Today, everyone was cheering them on, and Ning Fengji and the others expressed high praise for them. Flanders sighed. Children, this is the last battle before you graduate. After tomorrow's finals, you will graduate. Frankly speaking, it is my honor that Shrek Academy has accepted a group of geniuses like you. You are my pride. The Avengers are very strong, and of course, you are also very strong. But what I want to say is that I don't want to see any of you get into trouble in this last match. In my opinion, the championship isn't important. What's important is yourselves. I hope to see you return safely. The title of champion of the Continental Elite Academy Tournament, was this title important? Of course it was important. The title of champion of the entire continent in his previous life was the title of number 1 in the world. Lin Feng thought back to the effects of obtaining first place in the LOL World Championship in his previous life. That was an achievement that could directly proclaim a team as a god. Especially in this kind of competition, everyone would only remember the first place. No one would care about who the second place was. The World Championship was held once a year. As long as one won the championship, the reputation they would bring would be huge. The Soul Master Tournament in Dolua's world was held once every 5 years. If Shrek Academy could become the champion, all the Soul Master Academies on the continent would remember their name for the next 5 years. As the principal of Shrek Academy, this was the highest honor for Flanders. At this moment, he regarded the lives of the students as more important than this honor. It could be said that he was a rare good principal. When everyone heard this, they all said, "President, don't worry. We'll definitely win this championship. When the time comes, we'll definitely make Shrek Academy's name resound throughout the continent." Flanders sighed. "They're all good kids, but safety is the most important thing." Ma Hongjun suddenly said, "Teacher, why are your eyes red? The lights in this hotel are a little dazzling." Flanders's old face turned red. He turned his head and whispered. Zhao Wuji laughed. "Old Ghost Fu, you also have a day like this. Don't say such depressing words. From what I see, Xiao San and the others are so strong and full of momentum. That Avengers Alliance doesn't even have a Soul King. We'll definitely win. Xiao San and the others have a trump card. Once the 7-man combination skill is used, even I can't block it. Even if they can't display their full strength in a real battle, that group of soul ancestors won't be able to resist." Zhao Wuji had a deep understanding of Tang San's 7-man combination skill. It was an attack that he found difficult to block even with his martial soul true body. It was almost comparable to Soul Dolua's attack. The master also laughed. That's right. Xiao San and the others' combination skill is too strong. In my opinion, it's the strongest soul skill that's closest to a 7-man martial soul fusion skill. It's impossible for them to lose. A 3-in-1 martial soul fusion skill was already very powerful. 2 soul sages and 1 soul grandmaster could fight against a titled Dolu. A 7-man martial soul fusion skill was a legendary divine skill. It combined the martial souls of all 7 people and then unleashed it. The increase in his strength was simply unimaginable. Even if only 7 soul ancestors used it, Dolu wouldn't dare to say that he could win unless there were a few titled soul ancestors. This was the power of a divine skill. Although Tang San and the others' combination skill was far from a 3-in-1 martial soul fusion skill, it was still extremely powerful. The increase in strength was not inferior to a 3-in-1 martial soul fusion skill. Under such circumstances, the master was not worried that they would lose. Xiao San and the others can use a soul skill that's close to a 7-man martial soul fusion skill? Ning Fengji's eyes were full of surprise. This was something they didn't know. Dusty Heart, who was at the side, also had a trace of surprise in his eyes. The 7-man martial soul fusion skill was recognized as the #1 divine skill by all the soul masters on the continent. How talented were these 7 people to be able to use a skill that was close to this? Yes, it can be considered a trump card. The master nodded. This thing was still relatively confidential, so the master didn't say much. Ning Fengji also knew that his question was rather secretive, so he didn't ask much and quickly changed the topic. Then I wish the Shrek Academy to win the championship in advance. Ning Fengji chuckled. For a moment everyone was happy and harmonious. On the other hand, although Lin Feng was happy on the surface, he was somewhat depressed in his heart. Tang San could only vaguely feel that this was the calm before the storm, but Lin Feng had already seen it. His avatar in the sky pretended to be a big bird and flew around. Over the day, he saw too many actions of the martial soul hall. First, they drove away the soul masters of the other forces. Then, they let the soul sages and soul Dolo lurk in the city and seal the major city gate. There were also some actions by the elders of the titled Dolu. If it was the same as in the original work, it would be fine if only the titled Dolua took action. Lin Feng knew that Tang Hao was nearby. When the time came, he could still retreat after a big battle. He was afraid of the Soul Dolua and Soul Sages. There were too many of them. There were more than 100 Soul Sages and more than 40 Soul Dolu. Back then, Lin Feng had been able to take on more than 10 Soul Dolua by himself because no one knew how strong he was. He had taken them by surprise and he was very fast. That was why he had been able to take on so many Soul Dolu. Now that so many people had come, if they surrounded Lin Feng, he felt that he might be killed. The main thing was the consecrators of the Martial Soul Hall. If they also attacked, the danger would increase greatly. It seemed that he had to make a good plan this time, especially when it came to escaping. 2 things would happen the next day. First, Ning Fengji and Dusty Heart would help them fight against the Martial Soul Hall. By then, their titled Dolo would have Tang Hao, Dugu Bo, Dusty Heart, his original body and clone, as well as Grandmaster and the others' 3-in-1 martial soul fusion skill. In total, they would have the combat strength of about 6 titled Dolu. Dugu Bo and Grandmaster were on the same level. They were below the rank 96 titled Dolu. They could stop Yu Guan and Gue Mei. The other titled Dolua were above rank 96. It would be a piece of cake for them to fight 1 or 2 titled Dolu. Besides, with Ning Fengji's buff, 1 titled Dolua could fight 3 titled Doluos. Dugu Bo and Grandmaster could also fight 2 titled Doluos each. Therefore, in total, their ideal combat strength was equivalent to 16 titled Dolu. Of course, that would only happen in a short period of time. Ning Fengji could only support so many titled Doluo for a couple of minutes. Taking into account the differences in the actual situation, it would be good enough if they could exert the combat strength of 10 titled Doluo. The second scenario was that Ning Fengji and Dusty Heart wouldn't participate in the battle. That was very likely to happen. After all, Ning Fengji was the sect master of the 7 treasures glazed sect. If the Pope threatened him, he wouldn't have the courage to risk the fate of the entire 7 treasures glazed sect. In the original book, Bibi Dong had threatened him and promised not to hurt Ning Rongrong. Therefore, Ning Fengji wouldn't take action. But at the moment, Lin Feng believed that if both Thanos and Doctor Strange showed up and said a few words, Ning Fengji would have the courage to take action. By then, a chaotic battle could break out. That would be the best time for Lin Feng to gain experience points. Only the Martial Soul Hall? Of course not. Only children would make choices. He wanted all of them. Lin Feng wanted to earn experience points on both sides. Not only would he fight the Martial Soul Hall, but he would also fight his own people. What a joke. He had been planning for almost a year. How could he only earn experience points on one side? When the chaotic battle broke out, he would create a lot of clones to fight everywhere. While stirring up the water, he would earn experience points from everyone. Of course, the premise was that he had to ensure his safety. Lin Feng had to carefully place clones in the Hall of Worship. If too many people came from there, he would have to retreat immediately. After all, he was strong enough to fight against 5 people at the same time, but his teammates weren't that strong. Besides, Bibi Dong's twin martial souls and 100,000-year soul ring were also very strong. Maybe he was in the middle of a god's test. If he used his divine power, he would have to run immediately. The continent of Doluo wasn't big, so the gods shouldn't be strong. But compared to the titled Doluo, they were not on the same level. Lin Feng was sure that he couldn't resist this kind of attack at the moment. He could only run. Of course, he could only think about it now. Everything had to wait until tomorrow. When the time came, he would have to act according to the situation. The night passed very quickly. It was very quiet, and nothing happened in the Martial Soul City. The next morning, the finals were finally about to begin. In the VIP seats in the square, Bibi Dong and Ning Fengji were already seated. The referee and the staff of the Martial Soul Hall had already arrived. If one looked carefully, one would find that many of these staff members were unfamiliar faces. They restrained their auras. On the surface, they looked like Soul Kings and Soul Emperors, but in fact, they were all Soul Doluo. In fact, these people were the hidden strength of the Martial Soul Hall. But now, in order to kill Tang San and Lin Feng, they all came out to deal with unexpected situations and ensure that they could kill them. Shrek's 7 monsters walked up the stairs. Accompanied by Grandmaster and the others, they walked step by step toward the square. On the other side, the 7 members of the Avengers had been waiting for a long time. They had arrived earlier than them. In fact, Bibi Dong was very surprised by the appearance of the Avengers. Because last night, she felt that it wasn't safe, so she sent Gue Mei to that small building to see if she could see Doctor Strange. But in the end, not only did Gue Mei not see Doctor Strange, but the 7 members of the Avengers also disappeared. And this morning, they suddenly appeared again. They just popped out of thin air. At this moment, the Martial Soul City was sealed very tightly. There were people from the Martial Soul Hall monitoring everywhere. But even so, no one knew how they came out. So at this moment, Bibi Dong was very surprised. She had a rough guess. It should be that Doctor Strange's doing. That guy's martial soul must be very special. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to enter and leave the Martial Soul City so silently. Although she was surprised, Bibi Dong didn't panic. When the time came, there would be people to deal with him. The finals of the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament are about to begin. Both teams get ready. The competition will officially begin in 15 minutes. The referee shouted. This last 15 minutes was the last time for everyone to adjust their condition. Tang San's team of 7 cheered each other on, shouting that they would definitely win. On the other hand, the Avengers were quiet, resting with their eyes closed. The contrast between the two was very strong. It gave people a very strange feeling, and they couldn't help but look askance. In fact, Lin Feng was conserving his energy. He couldn't exhaust too much of his mental strength, so he rested when he could, and was ready for battle at any time. They didn't even look at us. These guys are so cold. Xiao Wu curled her lips. The Avengers have always been like this. According to Feng Ge, they are the kind of people who don't speak much. We have to be careful. Tang San's expression was serious. In everyone's eyes, the 7 members of the Avengers were very cold. So when Xue Qinghe and Steve talked a few days ago, they were very surprised. Of course we have to be careful, but our tactics are definitely invincible. The championship will definitely be ours. Ning Rongrong said with a smile. Last night they had discussed the details of their tactic. There would definitely be no problems today. We are the championship, Ma Hongjun said excitedly. Championship. The 7 of them shouted excitedly again. Young people were like this. They were full of vigor and momentum. If Lin Feng were to shout it himself, he would feel a little embarrassed. However, Tang San and the others shouted it very naturally. 15 minutes passed quickly, and the 2 teams arrived at the square under the lead of the referee. The competition is about to begin. Both sides can release their martial souls, the cardinal shouted. As soon as he finished speaking, both sides released their martial souls. Dai Mubai and the others stared at Steve and the others with sharp eyes. On the other side, each of them looked indifferent. Some of them didn't even open their eyes, as if they hadn't woken up yet. This made Dai Mubai and the others a little angry. This was the finals, and they looked down on them like this. It was really infuriating. All of them had decided that they would give them a good beating later. Just as the 2 of them released their martial souls, Bibi Dong suddenly looked at Ning Fengji, who was beside him. Sect Master Ning, who do you think will win? Bibi Dong's tone was calm, but there was a trace of majesty in it. Ning Fengji smiled and said, My daughter is in Shrek Academy's team. Of course I think Shrek's 7 monsters will win. The Pope's status was noble, but he was the sect master of the 7 treasures glazed sect. Although he wasn't on the same level, he wasn't far off. Therefore, he didn't need to use honorifics when speaking at this time. I see. I heard that your sect seems to have a good relationship with Tang San of Shrek's 7 monsters. You even bought a batch of powerful equipment from Tang San's Tang sect. Is this true? Bibi Dong suddenly said. This wasn't a big secret. Many forces in Heaven Do City knew about it. The Martial Spirit Hall's intelligence network was all over Heaven Do City, so it was easy for Bibi Dong to know about this. At this moment, as soon as she finished speaking, Ning Fengji's expression changed. Dusty Heart also clenched his fist. What did Bibi Dong mean by suddenly mentioning this? This was the finals. No matter what was said, it shouldn't be related to this matter. However, Bibi Dong mentioned it. It was very strange. With doubts, he smiled and said, It's just some small things for self-defense. Our 7 treasures glazed sect's soul masters are equipped with them. Even without the protection of a soul battle master, they can protect themselves to a certain extent. This thing is called a hidden weapon. Since the Pope suddenly asked about this, if you need it, the 7 treasures glazed sect can give some to the Martial Spirit Hall. No need to trouble sect Master Ning. Bibi Dong smiled and shook his head. Then, he suddenly changed the topic and looked at Ning Fengji with sparkling eyes. I heard that most of the people in the Tang sect are from the Strength Clan, and the Strength Clan is a vassal of the Clear Sky sect. Now that they suddenly changed their name to the Tang sect, what does sect Master Ning think about this matter? Hearing this, Ning Fengji understood. Bibi Dong should know about Tang San's identity. Even if he didn't know, he could roughly guess it. At this time, there was a deeper meaning to saying this. This reminded Ning Fengji of what the Great Master said to him after dinner last night. The Great Master said that there might be changes after today's finals. If something happened, he hoped that the Seven Treasures Glazed sect would lend a helping hand. After all, his daughter Ning Rongrong was also there. Lin Feng and Tang San were both geniuses that he thought highly of. At that time, Ning Fengji didn't think too much, so he hurriedly agreed. Now that he heard Bibi Dong's question, he felt that something big was going to happen. While thinking, he also said, "The Clan of Strength has already left the Clear Sky sect. Furthermore, the Clear Sky sect has also gone into seclusion. The Tang sect shouldn't be related to the Clear Sky sect." "That's not necessarily true. I heard that Tang San is Tang Hao's son." Bibi Dong's voice suddenly rose a notch. This made the atmosphere in the VIP seats a little tense. Dusty Heart's aura rose, and so did Gui Mei and Yu Guan. At this time, Dugu Bo suddenly laughed and said, "So what if he is? Tang Hao has already left the Clear Sky sect. Tang San is not related to the Clear Sky sect now." "Perhaps." Bibi Dong smiled and suddenly didn't say anything else. Ning Fengji, Dusty Heart, and Dugu Bo instantly fell into deep thought. They were thinking about Bibi Dong's motive for saying this. Yesterday they might not have felt anything. However, today Bibi Dong said this. They would be too stupid if they didn't see anything. Ning Fengji's gaze landed on a round table not far from the VIP seat. 3 soul bones were neatly placed there. It seemed that the Martial Spirit Palace was planning to take away the soul bones as a reward. This was the worst-case scenario that Ning Fengji could think of. As for killing someone in the plaza? As long as the Martial Spirit Palace wasn't crazy, they wouldn't do that. This was too unbelievable, so Ning Fengji didn't even think about it. The same went for Dugu Bo. He found it hard to imagine that the Martial Spirit Palace would dare to kill someone when so many titled battle pet warriors like Dolual were present. The VIP seats were all wearing different expressions. Master Bai's face was also gloomy. He had been paying attention to Bibi Dong. He couldn't hear what they were talking about, but judging from Ning Fengji and Dugu Bo's expressions, he could tell that something bad had happened. Because of this, Master Bai was a little worried about Tang San and the others. At that moment the referee shouted, "Let the match begin." Chapter 382. At the referee's command, the 2 teams moved at the same time, attracting the attention of the audience. At this moment, Tang San no longer hid. He directly released his 4th soul skill, Blue-Silver Cage. In an instant, countless blue-silver grass appeared under the feet of the 7 Avengers, surging like a blue ocean. Ordinary people could only see this blue color, but Bibi Dong's eyes were sharp, and she had been paying attention to Tang San. When this soul skill was released, she saw a trace of gold in the middle of the blue-silver grass. That was the Blue-Silver Emperor. At this point, Bibi Dong was 100% sure that Tang San was Tang Hao's son, because that person was the Blue-Silver Emperor. While Bibi Dong was thinking about this, the 7 members of the Avengers quickly gathered together. The blue-silver grass quickly gathered together and turned into a large cage, enveloping the 7 of them. However, the moment before it enveloped them, Thunder God Thor raised the hammer in his hand and lightning flashed. The others also released their soul rings, ready to attack. On the other side, taking advantage of the trapping, Tang San's Oscar quickly made berserk intestines and flying mushroom intestines and distributed them to Zhu Zhuqing and Dai Mubai. The 2 of them had activated their martial soul fusion skill and were the main attackers, so they had to be strengthened first. After that, he made the other sausages and tried to distribute them all within 5 seconds. At this time, Oscar didn't need to chant any soul incantation to make sausages. He could even make 2 or 3 sausages at a time, and his speed was extremely fast. Ning Rongrong at the side also instantly strengthened the combatant. She didn't need to be in a hurry to care about the others. After trapping them, Tang San waited for Oscar's sausages. As long as he ate the sausages, he would directly go to the middle area with Xiao Wu and use their martial soul fusion skill. At this moment, with a wave of thunder, Tang San's blue-silver cage was directly electrocuted into ashes. In fact, after Tang San's martial soul evolved, the toughness of his blue-silver grass had increased exponentially. Even Zhao Wuji had to use all his strength to pull it apart, allowing him to easily block attacks from Soul Emperors. However, that was only for ordinary attack. If it was a martial soul that countered it, such as fire or lightning, it would be a different story. Ma Hongjuan's flames were able to burn through the blue-silver grass, and his lightning attribute attack was even more tyrannical. Under his lightning attack, the blue-silver cage directly exploded. Tang San had already expected this. He did not think that he could stop them for long. At this moment he shouted, "Mubai, go! Take Chi, find an opportunity. Fatty, interfere. I'll support you." In fact, these tactics had already been discussed. At this time, Tang San shouted just to strengthen the momentum. "All right." Dai Mubai smiled slightly. The flaming white tiger phantom above his head let out a deafening roar, and then directly rushed toward the 7 people. At this time, Dai Mubai's momentum was very strong. Back then, he could also fight Soul Emperors head-on. Facing 7 Soul Ancestors, he did not panic at all. The main thing was that he still had his teammates to support him from the side. Dai Mubai pressed forward with indomitable will. Zhu Zhuqing directly merged into her shadow and disappeared. She wanted to give the enemy a strong psychological pressure. No one knew where her attack would come from. Ma Hongjun looked for an opportunity to fly into the sky. He was very vigilant, guarding against the Thunder God's hammer. At the same time, he spat out flames and attacked behind him. Outside the square, Lin Feng's eyes narrowed, and he became slightly solemn. This was a test he gave Tang San's team of 7. He would not go easy on them at all. He would use his limit of rank 49 to fight against Tang San and the others. As long as Tang San and the others played well, they could still win. If there was a mistake, they might even lose. While thinking about this, the Avengers in the square also moved. Hawkeye directly raised his bow and shot an arrow at Dai Mubai. The latter smiled contemptuously. Too slow, he easily dodged to the side. However, the arrow directly exploded in front of him, forming an area of smoke. Tang San and the others suddenly lost the vision of the 7 people of the Avengers. This kind of smoke was very special. Tang San's purple demon eyes could not see through it. "The plan is unchanged," Tang San shouted as he rushed into the smoke. Although the smoke was a bit unexpected, it did not affect anything. At the same time, the Hulk's body suddenly expanded and stood at the front. The hammer in Thor's hand was enlarged several times, and then he directly put the hammer in Hulk's hand. In the next second, the soul power in their bodies fused together, and Hulk's figure became larger again. Lightning surrounded his body, which was extremely terrifying. What a strong martial soul fusion skill! At this time, Hulk's aura was extremely powerful, almost the same as Dai Mubai's flaming white tiger. It was the first time for many people to see this kind of martial soul fusion skill. The martial soul fusion skill of 2 soul ancestors was comparable to that of a soul king and a soul ancestor. It was really too strong. This martial soul fusion value is almost close to the limit of 10. The master exclaimed. At this time, he was holding the martial soul fusion value detector in his hand, and the value displayed on it was 9.6. It was simply too strong, equivalent to the combined strength of the 2 people more than 9 times. At this time, when Xiao Wu and Tang San released their martial soul fusion skill, the value was only a little more than 8. This 9.6 was really amazing. However, this was not the end. Everyone was surprised to find that not only did the Thunder God give the hammer to Hulk, but the shield in the hand of Steve, who was next to him, also became a little bigger and flew into Hulk's hand. At this time, Hulk held the Mjolnir in his right hand and the shield in his left hand. He looked very much like Captain 50-50, who fought against Thanos in the movie. This is a Trinity martial soul fusion skill. This scene shocked everyone. In the entire world of Soul Masters, everyone had only seen a Trinity martial soul fusion skill from the golden iron triangle of the Master. 2 soul sages and a soul grandmaster were able to summon a golden dragon that could contend against titled Dolu. Now that the 3 soul ancestors displayed such a powerful soul skill, its power was enough to be compared to Dolu. While everyone was shocked, they also had a puzzled look on their faces. A beast martial soul and 2 tool martial souls. The martial souls of these 3 were not of the same type. No matter how one looked at it, their affinity would not be very high. But now they were performing a martial soul fusion, which was really puzzling. The Master did not have any doubts about this because he had heard this theory from Lin Feng. The most important thing between martial soul fusion was the control of soul power. As long as the martial souls were not of 2 extremes, they could basically release a martial soul fusion skill. At this time, although the martial souls of these 3 people were different, they did not conflict. As long as their control of soul power was strong enough, they could unleash a Trinity martial soul fusion skill. Of course, only Tang San and the others in Martial Spirit City knew about this. The others were shocked at this time and did not understand what was going on. At this time, Tang San and Dai Mubai had just rushed out of the smoke area. Originally, they should have been able to discover this point a step earlier and then have time to retreat. But because of the obstruction of the smoke, they were a little slower. Retreat! Everyone gather! Tang San roared. At the same time, he released the blue-silver cage again, wanting to stop the green giant. He could tell that this was a Trinity martial soul fusion skill. The control of the 3 people's soul power was much stronger than his. At least until now, Tang San was not confident that he could unleash such a powerful soul skill with others. If he was with Feng Go as the lead, he could still use it with Xiao Wu. But with Xiao Wu as the lead, there was still no way to release it. This was too difficult. Under the situation where their martial souls were not particularly close, the requirement of soul power control for the 3 people's martial soul fusion was too high. It was almost perfect. Tang San was still far from it. So at this time, he was very shocked by Hulk's performance. But he also knew that now was not the time to be shocked. They had to gather together and unleash a 7-in-1 martial soul fusion skill. Only then would they have a chance to win this soul battle. Otherwise, they would lose. Tang San's blue-silver cage had just risen when the Mjolnir in the green giant's hand flickered with lightning and destroyed the cage in an instant. Then, the green giant smashed his shield at Dai Mubai. The latter felt the tiger's roar behind him and wanted to block, but Tang San shouted, "Mubai, go back and defend. I'll block it." Dai Mubai had to go back. Otherwise, he would be in trouble if he was stopped here. Tang San roared and the 8 spider spears on his back instantly burst out. His upper clothes exploded and he instantly appeared in front of Dai Mubai. Clang! The 8 spears were placed in front of him. Tang San used all his strength to block the attack. The huge impact sent him flying more than 20 meters away. Fortunately, he used the blue-silver grass to hold on to the ground. Otherwise, he would have been sent flying just now. In fact, flying with the momentum was also a way to reduce the impact. Otherwise, Tang San would have been seriously injured if he had taken the attack head-on. One had to know that that was an attack at the level of Soul Dolu. It was already very impressive that he could block it. After landing, he coughed twice and quickly ate one of Oscar's recovery sausages. Attachment soul bone. Outside the plaza, many people exclaimed. Bibi Dong's eyes flashed with a cold light. She had already estimated that Tang San was a genius. The threat level was even higher than Lin Feng's. But now, he actually had an attachment soul bone on him. This was something more precious than 100,000-year soul ring. It was the #1 treasure in the entire world of soul masters. Bibi Dong glanced at it. If not for the fact that the soul bone had completely fused with Tang San, she would have suddenly attacked and killed Tang San. Even so, she still released her aura slightly, causing Dusty Heart and Dugubo to be on guard. But at the same time, they were also shocked by Tang San's attachment soul bone. Tang San had never revealed this thing before. It was also the first time they saw it. It had to be said that today's championship competition had brought too many surprises to everyone. Xiao Wu's fourth 10,000-year soul ring, Dai Mubai and Zhu Zhuqing's martial soul fusion skill, the Trinity martial soul fusion skill, and now, the attachment soul bone. These things, no matter in which competition, could be regarded as the focus of the whole audience. But in this year's competition, they all appeared together. It was too rare. Everyone could see that with the growth of this generation, the world of soul masters would welcome a lot of powerful soul masters. It was even possible that there would be more than a dozen titled Dolu. Of course, Bibi Dong could also foresee this. For the future of the Martial Spirit Hall, it was best for these people to join the Martial Spirit Hall. If they couldn't be roped in, then they would be killed. They would never allow people who obstructed the Martial Spirit Hall's plan to live, especially a group of powerful geniuses. If they went against the Martial Spirit Hall, it might even lead to the destruction of the Martial Spirit Hall. Thinking of this, Bibi Dong's eyes became even colder. At this time, Tang San's blue-silver grass danced, bringing everyone to his side. Mu Bai, hold on, the others come over, soul power fusion. In front, the flaming white tiger phantasm above Dai Mubai's head dissipated directly, and then turned into a large yellow shield more than 10 meters wide, blocking in front of them. On the opposite side, Hulk grabbed the shield that was bounced back, then grabbed his hammer and smashed towards Dai Mubai. Behind him, the other teammates were also preparing to flank, wanting to interrupt the seven people's joint skill. The Black Panther disappeared directly and instantly came to Ning Rongrong's side, clawing at her. However, at this time, Zhu Zhuqing seemed to have expected this scene and also clawed at him. The two clashed, and the Black Panther retreated in an instant. He had to retreat. If he didn't, Tang San's blue-silver grass would wrap around his body in an instant. Outside the square, Tang San nodded with a smile on his face, expressing his affirmation of Zhu Zhuqing's reaction and vigilance. This girl usually trained the hardest and learned the most. Now, it could be said that she was the one who improved the most besides Tang San. There was no need to talk about Tang San. This guy had cheats, and his purple demon eyes were open. It was not surprising that he had this kind of reaction. After the Black Panther retreated, Tang San used the blue-silver cage for the third time. However, this time, he didn't use it on others. Instead, he created a natural barrier of blue-silver grass around Shrek's 7 monsters. Under Tang San's pseudo-blue-silver domain, the blue-silver grass was exceptionally lush, and there was a golden light in the middle. In the dark, Tang Hao, who had been secretly watching, was already crying. He realized that Tang San and Ian were becoming more and more similar, especially the blue-silver emperor. It was exactly the same. Tang Hao saw Ian's appearance on Tang San's body. However, at the same time, he was also very shocked. When did Tang San change from blue-silver grass to blue-silver emperor? Previously, he had to deal with some things, so he didn't pay attention to Tang San for a period of time. He only sneaked into Martial Spirit City a few rounds after the finals had started. At this moment, it was Tang San's first time officially making a move, so Tang Hao was a little shocked. However, in the next second, something even more shocking happened. Hulk was very strong. He smashed Dai Mubai's shield with his hammer, then continued to attack everyone. At this moment, Dai Mubai clearly didn't have the strength to block another attack, and the others couldn't either. Under such circumstances, Tang San stood out and revealed all of his soul rings. Yellow, yellow, purple, black, black. Soul King. Furthermore, he was a Soul King with two 10,000-year soul rings. Especially the fifth soul ring, it exuded a powerful aura. The moment this soul ring appeared, it suddenly lit up. At this moment, Tang San was actually lifted into the air by this aura, and a blue-silver spear appeared in his hand. Then, when the aura condensed to its peak, Tang San smashed it towards Hulk. It could be said that the power of Tang San's soul skill was enough to reach the level of Soul Doluoz. What a joke, a 45,000-year soul ring brought about a soul skill. An ordinary Soul Doluoz 8th soul ring was at this level. Tang San's spear might not be able to reach the power of Soul Doluoz 8th soul skill, but it was enough to threaten Soul Doluoz's life. It was equivalent to a Soul Sage's all-out attack. Facing this attack, Hulk also stopped his forward momentum and used his shield to block it in place. Clang! The blue-silver tyrant's spear collided with the shield, and a loud and clear sound rang out. Hulk did not retreat a single step, but a crack appeared on the shield. However, Steve, who was behind him, quickly infused his soul power into the shield and repaired it in an instant. It didn't cause any harm to Hulk, but this scene still shocked everyone. Is this guy really a Soul King? His fifth soul skill is actually so powerful? The red-robed bishop who was the referee's forehead was full of sweat. He had a feeling that if that spear had been aimed at him, he would have been killed if he couldn't react in time even with his rank 76 soul power. This scene was too shocking. A Soul King unleashed strength that was close to Soul Doluoz's level. It was simply terrifying. Everyone from the Martial Soul Hall didn't know what to say at this moment, and they were all in a daze. No matter who it was in the VIP seats, everyone had a serious look on their faces. Yu Guan, Gue Mei, and Bibi Dong all felt that Tang San was simply too talented. Not only did he have twin martial souls, external soul bones, and a 10,000-year soul ring, but he was also able to unleash such a powerful attack as a Soul King. This was simply too terrifying. With such a leap in strength, wouldn't he be able to threaten titled Doluoz when he became a Soul Sage? If he went a little higher and reached Soul Doluoz's level, they might not even be able to defeat him. Tang San was too much of a threat, and he had to be eliminated. Ning Fengji, Dugu Bo, and Dusty Heart all had serious looks on their faces because they had felt the killing intent from them earlier. That's right, they were sitting right next to them, and they had all felt the killing intent that flashed past. It seemed like Tang San was too talented, and he had threatened the Martial Soul Hall's rule. Once the tournament was over, the Martial Soul Hall would definitely make a big move. When that happened, danger would come. At this moment, the three of them were slightly tense as they thought about what to do later. Outside the plaza, the masters didn't cheer. Instead, they were a little worried. On one hand, they were worried that the people from the Martial Soul Hall would make a move, and on the other hand, they were worried about Tang San. Although Tang San had a lot of soul power, he couldn't continuously use a 10,000-year soul skill. At this moment, the soul power in his body was somewhat insufficient. If the opponents seized the opportunity to break through their defense, they might not be able to use their combined skill because Tang San was the core of the 7-man combined skill. Fortunately, the 7-man combined skill had entered the final stage. When Tang San landed on the ground after releasing the blue-silver tyrant spear, the other 6 people connected their soul power to Tang San. In an instant, the soul power in Tang San's body was restored. At the same time, his body was filled with strength, and his body emitted a 9-colored light. He brought the other 6 people and slowly rose into the sky. At this moment, although the martial souls of the 7 people hadn't merged, their soul power was connected, and it greatly increased Tang San's strength. The 5th soul ring on his body suddenly enlarged and shone with an intense black light. There were many forms of combined skills. Some were created by everyone using the same low-level soul skill, and then the power of these soul skills were released together. Some were like Tang San, merging the soul power of others into one person's body, greatly increasing one's strength. At this moment, Tang San not only became stronger, but the soul skills he used were also stronger. In total, Tang San's strength was almost equivalent to a soul dolu. Only Tang San's physical fitness was strong enough to support such strength. Otherwise, if it were someone else, they wouldn't be able to use it at all. At this moment, Tang San used his fifth soul skill again, the blue-silver tyrant spear strengthened by the soul power of the 7 people. As the soul ring shone brightly, a long spear that was more than 10 meters long and emitted a blue-silver light appeared. The light on it was incomparably dazzling, not only illuminating the entire square, even the magnificent Pope's palace not far away seemed to be covered with a layer of blue gauze. This spear was very beautiful, but the aura on it was extremely powerful. There was even a phantom holding the spear, pointing it at Hulk in the square. The 7 people from the Avengers Alliance below were not idle either. After being unable to stop the 7 people from using their combined skills, they quickly reacted and began to use soul skills to harass them. However, Tang San's soul power fluctuations were too strong, and those soul skills were all blocked in midair, as if there was a transparent barrier blocking them. Hulk swung his hammer fiercely. Although it affected Tang San and the others, it wasn't able to interrupt their combined skills. Seeing this, the 7 people from the Avengers Alliance also gathered together and sent their soul power into Hulk's body. At this moment, Hulk grew a little taller again, about 8 meters tall. The hammer and shield in his hands also grew bigger, and his strength skyrocketed. Hulk only needed to take 2 steps to damage the arena that was reinforced by soul tools. Especially the aura on his body now, it was really terrifying. Around the square, the soul masters below the soul sage level couldn't help but retreat. Even the soul sages had to use their soul power to resist, otherwise, it would be a little uncomfortable. Just when the 2 sides had reached the peak, Tang San let out a loud roar and slashed down with his giant spear. The 7 of them gathered together and also pressed down with the shadow of the spear. Below, Hulk had already held his shield firmly, and the Mjolnir in his right hand was surrounded by lightning as he hammered upwards with all his might. Boom! One above and one below, the 2 powerful forces collided together and let out a shocking sound. An incomparably huge soul power fluctuation swept across the entire square, and the stones on the arena shattered inch by inch, and the closer ones even turned into powder. Under this impact, the weaker ones were directly sent flying by the aura, and only the stronger soul masters were able to use their soul power to resist. The VIP seats were definitely fine. They were all experts and easily resisted this shock wave. However, the impact on their souls made them unable to calm down for a long time. This was only a battle between a group of soul ancestors and soul kings, but it gave people the feeling that 2 soul dolual were fighting. It was really too shocking. Chapter 383. At this moment, the entire plaza was filled with smoke and dust due to the countless shattered rock. For a moment, no one could see the situation clearly. Everyone knew that this was a battle of strength between the 2 sides. In the end, the champion should be out. At this moment, everyone became nervous. Some were nervous about who the champion would be, while Dugabo and the others were nervous about the Martial Soul Hall's movements. They were afraid that they would suddenly make a move. Just like this, under everyone's anticipation, the smoke and dust in the center of the plaza gradually dissipated, revealing the scene inside. Outside the plaza, Lin Feng revealed a relieved smile. He knew that Tang San and the others had won. The Trinity Martial Soul Fusion skill that he had used had been executed by 3 rank 49 soul ancestors, and there were even other soul ancestors who had cooperated to attack. There was actually an upper limit to these attacks added together, and Tang San's giant spear had exceeded this upper limit. In the end, with this slight advantage, Tang San's group of 7 was able to win this exchange. When the smoke and dust dissipated, the 7 members of the Avengers were all lying on the ground, while Shrek's 7 monsters slowly floated down from the sky. Although they were all panting, their faces were brimming with smiles. It was really too dangerous just now. If it weren't for Tang San and Dai Mubai's continuous defense, if the other party had rushed over, they would have definitely lost if any one of them was seriously injured. Fortunately, the 2 of them were strong. Although they were slightly injured, it wasn't a big deal. Zhu Zhuqing also blocked Hey Panther's attack and successfully used the 7-man combination skill in the end. At this moment, there was a 10-meter-wide crater in the center of the plaza. It was caused by the clash just now, and the destructive power caused the spectators to swallow a mouthful of saliva. The referee was also shocked. Was this really a soul skill that could be used in a battle between a soul ancestor and a soul king? It was simply too inconceivable. At this moment, Tang San and the others glanced at the referee. Only then did the latter react and step forward to confirm the status of the 7 members of the Avengers. After a few seconds, he shouted, "I announce that the champion of the Continental Elite Academy tournament is Shrek Academy." Hearing this, Tang San and the others breathed a sigh of relief and looked at each other at the same time. "We are the champions, haha! We are the champions!" The 7 of them spoke softly at first, but then they roared, "Our Shrek Academy is the champion, the champion!" The 7 of them hugged each other excitedly as they shared their joy. The Grandmaster and the others also walked up excitedly. Lin Feng also walked up with a smile. He was happy for Tang San and the others. Perhaps this match was nothing to Lin Feng. He even felt that it was a little boring. It was just a game of calculation. But in the eyes of Tang San and the others, that was a goal they had been striving for the past year. Now that they had achieved it, of course they were excited. "Feng Go! We won! We won the championship!" Seeing Lin Feng come over, a group of people gathered around him, their faces full of excitement. In the face of everyone's pride and excitement, Lin Feng smiled and replied, "You earned this with your own efforts." Just as Shrek Academy was cheering excitedly, the 7 members of the Avengers had already stood up and slowly walked out of the arena. Because everyone's attention was on Shrek's side, no one cared about them. But there were still 2 red-robed bishops from the Martial Soul Hall watching the 7 of them. Their task was very simple: control the 7 of them later. But now, their faces were full of seriousness. The performance of the Avengers was too strong. They felt that the 2 of them couldn't control them at all. They needed 2 more people. At the same time, a few elders from the Martial Soul Hall quietly came around the plaza, ready to carry out their plan. The feeling of an impending storm was becoming more and more intense, and the stronger soul masters present could all feel it a little. On the VIP platform, Dugubo looked at Bibi Dong and said in a deep voice, "Pope, this is a continental competition. Please be careful." He could feel that there were strong people coming out from the Pope's side, which made him very vigilant. On the side, Dusty Heart also felt it. At this moment, he was discussing with Ning Fengji what to do. At this moment, Bibi Dong stood up and smiled. "What are you talking about, Your Holiness Dugu? I don't understand. I just want to give the Shrek Academy an award." "You?" Dugu Bo's eyes widened and he was a little angry. Wasn't it obvious that they were blind? With so many titled Soul Masters coming out, Soul Dolua could sense Soul Dolua. However, Bibi Dong ignored him. Instead, she stood up with Yu Guan and Gue Mei and announced calmly, "The champion of this year's Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament is Shrek Academy. Congratulations, you are the pride of the Soul Master world." Bibi Dong didn't want to fall out with the 2 empires yet. Furthermore, she had to maintain the reputation of the Martial Soul Hall. Therefore, she had to give out the 3 soul bones even if she didn't want to. Bibi Dong's voice attracted everyone's attention. Shrek's 7 monsters also stopped cheering and looked over. At this moment, Tang San realized that Bibi Dong seemed to be staring at him again. This made him feel a little uneasy. He said to Lin Feng, "Feng Go, I feel that the Pope already knows my identity. Something might happen later." This wasn't difficult to guess. When someone tried to assassinate him on the way here, Tang San had already guessed that this day would come. However, he had the same thought as Master and the others. With so many titled soul masters around, even if Bibi Dong wanted to do something, she would have to be careful of the consequences. Therefore, in the end, nothing big would happen. Nothing big will happen. Mr. Destroy is here. Lin Feng smiled. At this moment, Lin Feng was actually a clone. His original body and avatar had become Steve and Saul. Lin Feng's 8th soul skill allowed him to teleport. At the same time, he could also switch places with his avatar. With his current strength, soul power, and control of the 1,000 trickery ruler, switching places was just a matter of an instant. After he released his soul skill, his soul power fluctuations were completely controlled by him. There was no leakage at all. No one noticed this. Mr. Destroy is here? Tang San was stunned. Of course. Lin Feng smiled and didn't say anything. As for Tang San's side, he heaved a sigh of relief. Looks like nothing would happen today. To Tang San and the others, Mr. Destroy was an invincible god of war. They had never seen Mr. Destroy lose in a long time. He was invincible. Under such circumstances, even if the Martial Soul Hall wanted to do something to them, Tang San had nothing to worry about. At this moment, Bibi Dong used his soul power to float in the air with 3 soul bones. Then, he came to the square. The red-robed referee shouted, "Representatives of the Shrek Academy, please come forward to receive the 3 soul bones for the championship." 3 soul bones floated in front of Bibi Dong. They shone brightly, causing a trace of greed to appear in everyone's eyes. However, Bibi Dong did not give him a second glance. Instead, he looked straight at Tang San and Lin Feng, who was beside him. These 2 people were the targets that the Martial Soul Hall wanted to kill later. Bibi Dong's thoughts aside, the 7 people from the Shrek Academy all looked at Lin Feng after hearing Bibi Dong's word. "Feng Go, didn't you say that you would accept the skull after we won the championship? Now that we have won the championship, you can represent our academy to receive the award," the 7 people said sincerely. The Grandmaster nodded and said, "Xiao Feng, speaking of which, the person who can represent the 7 of them the most is not themselves, nor is it us teachers. It's you. If it weren't for your teachings, I don't think Xiao San and the rest would be so outstanding. You deserve to represent them to receive this honor today." "That's right. That's the way it should be." Zhao Wuji laughed. Flanders and the rest nodded. They had seen Lin Feng's actions. There was nothing wrong with representing the Shrek Academy to receive the award. Lin Feng smiled and said, "I didn't say that I wanted this soul bone if you won the championship. I really don't care about this thing. But since you want me to go up and get it, I'll go up and get it." Lin Feng went up to get it mainly because he wanted to get closer to Bibi Dong. This guy had been looking at him a lot just now. Now that he was closer, he wanted to feel Bibi Dong's beauty up close. As he thought about this, Lin Feng looked relaxed and walked slowly toward Bibi Dong. Everyone in the audience was watching this scene. When they saw Lin Feng's expression, they were shocked. This guy was so relaxed. He was so relaxed in front of the Pope. He was too strong. At the same time, everyone was puzzled. Who was this guy? Shouldn't one of the Shrek's 7 monsters go up to receive the award? At the very least, it should be the teacher or the dean. But now, a very unfamiliar guy rushed up. Everyone was puzzled. After all, Lin Feng was too young and had not gone up before. It could be said that other than the people from the Shrek Academy, Only Bibi Dong looked at Lin Feng. Everyone else was unfamiliar with Lin Feng. At this moment, Bibi Dong was also a little surprised. She knew that Lin Feng's identity was not ordinary, but he had nothing to do with the competition. Now that he went up to receive the award, it was really surprising. However, she didn't say anything. She just smiled and watched Lin Feng arrive. Not far away, Dugubo was ready to attack. If Bibi Dong wanted to harm Lin Feng, he would immediately attack. On the side, Yu Guan had been watching Dugubo. After seeing his situation, he couldn't help but say, "Old poison, you'd better behave. Otherwise, you'll be affected." Yu Guan's martial soul was the strange velvet sky chrysanthemum, which was very resistant to poison. It could be said to be the perfect counter to Dugubo's snake venom. Therefore, Bibi Dong specially arranged for him to watch Dugubo Chrysanthemum Guan. "I advise the Martial Soul Palace to behave. You've seen Mr. Destroy's strength. If something happens to the Shrek Academy today, the Martial Soul Palace will not have peace in the future." Dugubo snorted coldly. The threat of the Martial Soul Palace was nothing to him. Who was Thanos? He was a powerful existence who had received the inheritance of a god. It was very likely that he would become a god in the future. With such a powerhouse supporting him, Dugubo was not afraid of anyone. "Who are you trying to scare? Thanos didn't come at all. Even if he did, would he dare to attack the Martial Soul Palace?" Gue Mei shook his head. To be honest, Bibi Dong was also afraid of Thanos. Yu Guan and Gue Mei had fought with him before, so they knew his strength. But now they knew that Thanos didn't come. Moreover, they had set up patrol around the Martial Soul City. If a powerful Soul Master broke in, he would definitely be discovered. Because of these measures, Bibi Dong didn't take Thanos into consideration when he calculated the strength of the Martial Soul Palace. Mr. Destroy is very resourceful. Although the Martial Soul Palace is powerful, it's not invincible. When the time comes, you'll have to bear the consequences. Dugubo's face was calm. Hearing this, Yu Guan and Gue Mei didn't say anything. Thanos was powerful, but to say that he could threaten the Martial Soul Palace was a bit boastful. The two of them were defeated by Thanos because they were careless. If they were to fight again, even if they couldn't win, they wouldn't be defeated so quickly. Moreover, they heard from the Pope that when the time came, there would even be consecrators. If Thanos came, they wouldn't be afraid. Just as they were thinking about this, Lin Feng had already arrived in front of Bibi Dong. To be honest, Lin Feng didn't believe that Bibi Dong was already 50 years old. Her face was too perfect. There were no flaws. Time didn't leave any traces on her body. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was beautiful. Although Zhu Zhuqing and Ning Rongrong were beautiful, they were still young. However, Bibi Dong was so beautiful that it was suffocating. As for Qian Renxue, perhaps because her clothes were more masculine, Lin Feng didn't feel that she was too stunning. He felt that she didn't inherit Bibi Dong's excellence. But now Bibi Dong's clothes, hair, face, and scepter all supported her noble temperament. At this moment, Lin Feng was even a little absent-minded. However, he didn't look at her for long. Although he was thick-skinned, it was too rude to keep staring at her. Even so, Bibi Dong still looked at Lin Feng for a few seconds. At this moment, Bibi Dong felt the feeling of being scrutinized from Lin Feng's eyes. It was very strange. A guy who was so much younger than you was actually scrutinizing you. When Lin Feng came closer, Bibi Dong smiled and said, "Lin Feng, right? I heard that Shrek's 7 monsters were all taught by you. I wonder if such an outstanding person is interested in joining our Martial Soul Palace? I can make an exception and promote you to an elder of the Martial Soul Palace." After more than half a year of power struggle, Bibi Dong's position as the Pope in the Martial Soul Palace was much more stable. Although there were still voices of opposition, it was no longer important. Under such conditions, as long as Lin Feng was really capable, it wouldn't be a big deal for her to give Lin Feng the position of an elder. Furthermore, Bibi Dong didn't give out elder positions randomly. After a few days of investigation, she knew that Lin Feng was the main reason why Shrek's 7 monsters could be so powerful. This was a guy who was even more powerful than a master. Even if he was really trained by Tang Chen, as long as she could rope him into the martial soul palace, Bibi Dong was confident that she could make Lin Feng submit. At this moment, Bibi Dong didn't know Lin Feng's strength. Of course, no one knew. If she knew, Bibi Dong might have directly promised such a genius the position of Pope. You want to rope me in? Lin Feng wasn't surprised by Bibi Dong's decision. This was normal. Smart people could see his handsomeness and excellence. Lin Feng didn't directly refuse this invitation. Instead, he smiled and said, "I'll think about it?" Bibi Dong was stunned. She didn't expect to hear such an answer. She frowned slightly and asked, "Is Tang San your younger brother? What's your relationship with Tang Hao?" The two of them suddenly began to converse. This was something that no one had expected, especially since Bibi Dong used her soul power to isolate the surrounding space. No one could hear what they were saying. "Guess." Lin Feng looked into Bibi Dong's eyes and said confidently, "You." Bibi Dong's beautiful brows furrowed. At this moment, she suddenly understood how Dugu Bo felt just now. Being rendered speechless by a single sentence was probably the best way to describe the current state they were in now. The most infuriating thing was that Bibi Dong didn't dare to do anything in front of so many people. Moreover, Lin Feng said that he could think about it, which made Bibi Dong somewhat expectant. If such a talent was recruited by the Martial Spirit Hall, wouldn't there be hundreds of geniuses in the next few years after training? Even if they weren't as powerful as Shrek's 7 monsters, it would be very good if they were half as powerful as them. Because of this, Bibi Dong had to endure Lin Feng's rudeness. "Don't be anxious, Pope. Do you have any other questions?" Lin Feng's face was filled with a happy smile. Even if Bibi Dong was angry, her face was still very beautiful. It didn't ruin her beauty at all. Bibi Dong could feel Lin Feng's joy. "This rude guy dares to laugh at me. How dare he?" But at the same time, Bibi Dong was even more curious about Lin Feng. She asked, "Who is Thanos? Why has he been challenging titled Doloa all these years?" Titled Doloa would fight with each other, but it was usually a fixed number of people, and the frequency was not very high. Sometimes they wouldn't even fight once a year. But Thanos was different. This guy was a brute. On average, he would fight one battle every half a month. Sometimes he would fight 1 against 2, or even 1 against 3, and the opponents were different people. It was really shocking. Until now, Bibi Dong still didn't understand what Thanos's purpose was. This time, Lin Feng didn't tease Bibi Dong. Instead, he said with a serious face, "Thanos is the director of the Universe Family Planning Bureau. His purpose is to exterminate half of the universe's population for the sake of family planning. But I think his path is a bit extreme. This is not good." Bibi Dong. Why did it feel like Lin Feng's answer was a bit irrelevant? He was asking why he wanted to challenge Doloa. What the hell was the universe? A certain place? Why did he want to exterminate half of the people there? What did family planning mean? Why did he go astray again? Bibi Dong felt that all of this was unreal. She couldn't understand it at all. But Lin Feng said it with a serious face. No matter how she looked at it, it didn't seem like he was lying. This really gave Bibi Dong a headache. While the two of them were talking, the atmosphere outside was a bit strange. The whole place was extremely quiet, waiting for the two of them to finish their conversation. Several people from the Shrek Academy were whispering. Tang San and the others used their soul power to block the sound to prevent it from spreading. On the other hand, Xue Qinghe was a bit nervous. His heart was beating fast, afraid that Lin Feng and Bibi Dong would talk about him. Especially just now, Bibi Dong even glanced at him, which made Xue Qinghe's heart jump to his throat. Of course, Bibi Dong didn't look at him again, which made him feel relieved. At this time, inside Bibi Dong's soul power barrier, she finally asked the question in her heart. Universe? Family planning? What does that mean? And why did Thanos kill half of the people in the universe? To be honest, this question made Lin Feng feel very funny, because Bibi Dong didn't know the meaning of these words, which was very funny. However, Lin Feng did not have the intention to explain this to Bibi Dong. He took a deep breath and smirked. He smiled and said, "Why don't you guess?" Ah! In his heart, Bibi Dong was already yelling in anger. If he yelled out, the monsters would probably call him an expert. But it was a pity that these were only cries in his heart. On the surface, Bibi Dong's face was still calm. Congratulations again to Shrek Academy for winning the championship. Bibi Dong quickly returned the soul bone to Lin Feng as he spoke through gritted teeth. At this time, she really didn't want to talk to Lin Feng anymore. This guy was too infuriating. If it weren't for Lin Feng's ability being really strong, Bibi Dong would have slapped him to death at this time. But just now, he said that he would think about it, which made Bibi Dong still have hope in his heart. Later, he would take down Tang San and Lin Feng first. If Lin Feng joined their martial spirit hall, it would be okay to keep Tang San alive. Even if he didn't agree, both of their lives could actually be kept first. They would be trapped in the martial spirit hall. Bibi Dong would rope them in over the years, and there would be a day when he succeeded. And Bibi Dong could feel that although Lin Feng's words were very annoying, it was undeniable that he was a smart person. And dealing with smart people was the most worry-free. Bibi Dong felt that Lin Feng would definitely make the best choice. "Thank you, Your Holiness the Pope." Lin Feng took the 3 soul bones from Bibi Dong's hand and smiled slightly. At this moment, many soul masters around looked at him with greedy eyes. Previously, when those soul bones were in front of the Pope, they didn't dare to be too obvious even if they wanted them. Now that they were in Lin Feng's hands, their gazes became much bolder. However, they were just thinking about it. In front of the Pope, they didn't dare to really make a move. Of course, if these 3 soul bones were not absorbed, some people might take the risk out of desperation. The soul bones are not bad. Take them. After Lin Feng grabbed the 3 soul bones and came in front of everyone, he directly threw the soul bones over. Everyone was shocked by this scene. This was a soul bone, not some worthless toy. How could he throw it away so casually as if it were trash? That was truly shocking. It wasn't that they couldn't be thrown away. It was just like a diamond that was worth $1 billion. Could be thrown away, but no one would throw it away because it was too valuable. At this moment the soul bones were the same, which was why it was shocking. Chapter 384. Fongo, this wisdom skull can greatly increase a soul master's spiritual power. Take it. After receiving the soul bone, everyone hurriedly persuaded him. In their opinion, it was impossible for Lin Feng not to need this 50,000-year skull. Now that he gave it to them, it could only mean that Lin Feng was too good to them. This made them extremely touched, and they expressed that they must let Lin Feng absorb this skull. Lin Feng looked helpless. "I really don't need it. Actually, I already have it." As he spoke, Lin Feng's soul power moved slightly. In an instant, his body exuded an enormous aura of a ferocious beast. Tang San and the others were scared silly. Even Flender and the others who were at the side felt their hair stand on end. When a soul master absorbed a soul ring, he would usually erase the soul beast's will within it, and then absorb the soul ring's power. However, absorbing a soul bone was different. Normally, a soul bone would contain the enormous aura of an origin soul beast. If a soul master absorbed and suppressed it, he would be able to release the aura within. At this moment, under Lin Feng's control, the Qianquan blood shadow beast's aura was only released in an area of 20 to 30 meters around him. No one else could feel it. So strong. Tang San swallowed his saliva. The rest of them were also in shock. Just now, it gave them the same feeling as when they were targeted by the Titan giant ape in the Star Do Great Forest. In an instant, everyone's foreheads were covered in sweat. Even though Flanders had reached the level of Sol Dolois, he still panicked. The master pressed his trembling hand down and then asked, "Little Feng, this soul bone of yours, is tens of thousands of years old?" "Not much. It should be around 80 to 90,000 years old," Lin Feng said casually. "Damn. So what Feng Gu said was true. I really don't like this soul bone," Ma Hongjun said in a daze. The others also sucked in a breath of cold air. Even if it was an 80,000-year soul bone, because it was a skull soul bone and Lin Feng was still young, this soul bone would definitely not be inferior to a 100,000-year leg bone when he became stronger in the future. "Feng Gu, I think you must be Mr. Destroy's son. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so good to you," Xiao Wu said with certainty. "That's right. I think so too." Dai Mubai nodded. Although the rest of them did not say anything, they were very sure of it. Lin Feng said grumpily, "Don't think too much. Just split it up." Out of these 3 soul bones, the left leg's acceleration soul bone is suitable for agility-type soul masters. Zhu Qing, take it. It suits you better. This right arm soul bone is of the fire element, so I can only give it to Fatty. You just happen to have a left arm soul bone, and now you have a right arm soul bone as well. You've got a pair. Dusty Heart, Dugu Bo, and Tang San all had solemn expressions at this time. Was the Martial Spirit Palace finally going to make a move? It seemed that there was no way to be kind. They found that the members of the Martial Spirit Palace began to appear around the square one after another. They were all powerful soul masters, and the weakest was a soul sage. They quietly surrounded the square. These people actually didn't know what to do next. They came after receiving the order. Only those high-level titled soul masters like Doluan knew the specific situation. "Your Holiness, what is the meaning of this?" Ningfengji frowned and asked. In fact, he already had a rough idea in his mind. He was just asking the obvious at this time. Tang San is Tang Hao's son, and the Clear Sky sect is the Martial Spirit Palace's archenemy. Therefore, this Tang San is also a wanted criminal of the Martial Spirit Palace. Now, the Martial Spirit Palace is arresting a wanted criminal. Do you have any doubts, Sect Master Ning? Bibi Dong's indifferent voice resounded in the square. Everyone's expression changed. The Martial Spirit Palace was not invincible in the world yet. If they arrested someone without any reason, it would be too arrogant and would cause a lot of disgust. They had to have a good reason, and this reason had to be reasonable. Just like what Bibi Dong said now, the Martial Spirit Palace was arresting Tang San because he was a wanted criminal of the Martial Spirit Palace. Everyone knew that the Clear Sky sect and the Martial Spirit Palace were enemies. There was nothing wrong with using this reason at this time. Lin Feng and Xiao Wu are sworn brothers with Tang San. They should be in cahoots with him. I hope that the others will not interfere with the Martial Spirit Palace's arrest of wanted criminals. Bibi Dong's voice resounded in the square again. Now, everyone knew what Bibi Dong was going to do. The more foolish ones would think that Bibi Dong was arresting Tang San because of his identity. The smarter ones would see more clearly. They would know that Tang San was too talented and threatened the status of the Martial Spirit Palace. That was why they were arresting him. Otherwise, Tang San would have been arrested when he first entered the Martial Spirit City because of his identity. Now that the tournament was over and even the soul bones had been distributed, it could only mean that Bibi Dong was too afraid of Tang San's talent. Pope, Tang San has already been expelled from the Clear Sky sect. Tang San doesn't belong to the Clear Sky sect, so he can't be considered a wanted criminal of the Martial Spirit Palace. Grandmaster suddenly stood up and looked directly into Bibi Dong's eyes. Grandmaster used to be someone that Bibi Dong liked. Now that Grandmaster was looking directly into his eyes, Bibi Dong felt a little pressured and avoided his gaze. Gui Mei shouted, "How dare you? How dare you be disrespectful to the Pope? Grandmaster used to be an honorary elder of the Martial Spirit Palace. Gue Mei knew this. However, he had already been expelled from his position as an elder, and his elder token had been revoked. However, just as he was thinking about this, the Grandmaster took out an elder's token from his soul tool and said loudly, "I have the Martial Soul Hall's elder token. As an elder, I have the right to question the Pope's decision." Tang Hao had given him this token back in Nodding City. Grandmaster was using it now. Dugu Bo also came to the Shrek Academy. To be precise, he came to Lin Feng's side. He said, "Pope, we have to consider this at length." Ning Fengji also said, "Xiao San is from the Tang sect. He has nothing to do with the Clear Sky sect. I hope you will reconsider." What? Is the Seven Treasures Glazed sect going to protect a wanted criminal of the Martial Spirit Palace today? Bibi Dong glanced at Ning Fengji. Just as he finished speaking, 5 elders wearing the Martial Spirit Palace's elder attire appeared around the plaza. Including Yu Guan and Gue Mei, the Martial Spirit Palace had sent out 7 titled Dolua elders this time. In addition, there were so many soul sages, soul Dolua, and the Pope himself. This time, the Martial Spirit Palace had put in a lot of effort. They had brought out an unprecedented amount of strength. The appearance of these people made the Grandmaster and the others change their expressions. The Martial Spirit Palace had set up an inescapable net. With so many titled Dolua experts taking action, they felt that they were in great danger this time. Even Dugu Bo and Ning Fengji's expressions changed. They felt that things were getting tricky. "We only want to catch Tang San and the others. We won't hurt your daughter. Sect Master Ning, please conduct yourself with dignity. Otherwise, the Seven Treasures Glazed sect will become the Martial Spirit Palace's enemy," Bibi Dong said to Ning Fengji. At this time, the Martial Spirit Palace displayed their strength. Their suppressive aura covered the entire plaza. Some of the weaker ones even found it difficult to breathe. After hearing Bibi Dong's words, Ning Fengji's expression turned serious. He never thought that Bibi Dong would be so stubborn. He directly raised the issue to the level of the sect. At this moment, Bibi Dong was asking him to make a very difficult choice. This choice was related to the safety of the entire Seven Treasures Glazed sect. If he chose to help Tang San, he would be standing on the opposite side of the Martial Spirit Palace. That being said, he could win the favor of Thanos and Tang San. On the other hand, if he chose to stand by and do nothing, he would not offend Tang San. However, he might lose the favor he had gained earlier. That being said, he wouldn't have to go against the Martial Spirit Palace. The sect would be fine. Should he choose to help Tang San or not? If it weren't for his relationship with Thanos, Ning Fengji would have chosen to stand by and do nothing. However, because of Thanos, he found it difficult to make a choice. Right then, Ning Rongrong shouted, "Dad, help Feng Go. The Martial Spirit Palace is so evil." His daughter's words woke Ning Fengji up. At this moment, his 2 choices were actually at a delicate balance point. From the perspective of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect, there wasn't much difference no matter which one he chose. However, Ning Rongrong's shout made Ning Fengji realize that he was not only the sect master of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect, but also a father. Therefore, he made a decision at this moment. "Pope, I think we can still discuss this matter." Bibi Dong smiled and said, "Sect Master Ning, I think you can still consider it. Otherwise, the sect master of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect might disappear directly today." At the end, the scepter in Bibi Dong's hand shook violently. In the next second, 9 soul rings appeared on Bibi Dong's body. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red. The first 8 soul rings were actually nothing. The main thing was her 9th soul ring, 100,000-year soul ring. A huge pressure enveloped the entire place. Ning Fengji, who was closer, was directly suppressed to the point that he couldn't move. If not for Dusty Heart's soul power spreading over, Ning Fengji might not have been able to move at all. Elders, take down Tang San and the other two. Let's see who dares to stop us. Bibi Dong shouted sternly. At the Pope's command, all the titled soul masters around the square moved. Soul Doluo and soul sages were also ready to attack to prevent their targets from escaping. Dugu Bo actually wanted to take Lin Feng and the other two away. The three of them were Bibi Dong's targets. If he took them away, the others shouldn't be in any danger. However, the seal was too tight. Furthermore, Yu Guan was watching him. Dugu Bo didn't have a chance to take them away. At this moment, the people from the Martial Soul Hall moved. Flanders and the others looked serious as they prepared to activate their Trinity Martial Soul Fusion skill. Dugu Bo was also possessed by his martial soul and his soul rings were revealed. He had to protect Flanders and the others by summoning the Golden Holy Dragon. Otherwise, according to the difference in strength, they wouldn't be able to defeat them even with Ning Fengji's support. At this moment, Tang San and the others were very nervous. Although they were geniuses, they were nothing in front of a real powerhouse. So what if they used a 7-man combination skill? They were still vulnerable in front of a titled Soul Master Dolu. Right now, there were several titled Dolu around them. There was nothing they could do apart from huddling together. Old Poison, I'll play with you today. Yu Guan smiled evilly and directly entangled Dugu Bo. Ghost Charm at the side directly disappeared into the shadows, giving everyone a lot of pressure. Dugu Bo's expression changed. These two people were approaching. He couldn't protect Flanders and the others. He could only go forward to block them. Otherwise, they would be in trouble. On the other side, Winged Doluo, Qing Yun Doluo, White Ape Doluo, and the other titled soul masters who had surrounded the plaza directly rushed toward Tang San and the others. In front, Ning Fengji directly summoned the 7 treasures glazed pagoda, wanting to enhance the masters and Dugu Bo. However, just as his 7-colored light shot out, Bibi Dong's soul power swept over and blocked all his enhancement. How is this possible? Ning Fengji was shocked. After so long, this was the first time Ning Fengji encountered such a situation. His soul skill was blocked. It was unbelievable. However, Dusty Heart behind him was still affected by his soul skill. At this moment, Dusty Heart had become extremely powerful. However, he didn't look relaxed at all. He was full of seriousness. He also felt Bibi Dong's strength. Originally, Dusty Heart thought that Bibi Dong wasn't strong because of her young age. Even if she had 100,000-year soul ring, Ning Fengji's enhancement should be able to defeat her easily. However, just now, Bibi Dong's ability to block Ning Fengji's soul skill showed that she had extremely good control of her soul power. Her soul power rank was probably very high too. It was at least rank 95. In this way, Dusty Heart believed that a rank 95 titled Soul Master with 100,000-year soul ring, Doluo with 100,000-year soul ring, would be able to hold off Bibi Dong for a short period of time, even if he wasn't as strong as himself. This was difficult. Dugu Bo was the only one on the Shrek Academy's side. Even if Flanders and the others were included, they only had 2 titled Soul Masters as strong as Dolu. Dusty Heart originally thought that with Ning Fengji's enhancement, they could be considered to have 6 titled Soul Masters as strong as Dolu. If they couldn't win, they could run. But now it seemed that Bibi Dong had directly trapped the 2 of them here, and Ning Fengji couldn't enhance others at all. This made things difficult. Bibi Dong looked at the 2's expressions and chuckled. Sect Master Ning, as long as the 2 of you stay put, I can guarantee that we will let bygones be bygones. In fact, Bibi Dong was still hiding a lot of her strength. She didn't want to reveal her second martial soul. In this case, she couldn't beat Dusty Heart. And she didn't want to show her true strength because of a fight, so it was a very good choice to use words to deter the 2 of them. At this moment, a low roar came from not far away. How dare you bully my disciple? This voice wasn't soft, and it was full of momentum. everyone's attention was immediately attracted. It was the resting area of the Avengers. After the 7 people of the Avengers were defeated, they walked in. Because everyone's attention was on the Shrek Academy, no one cared about them. However, the Cardinals had been keeping an eye on them. Their mission was to suppress the 7 of them after the battle started. Wasn't that why the few of them had come over? And then, as soon as they came in, they saw Doctor Strange. Then they were sent flying with a slap, and at the same time, that low roar came out. In fact, this time was deliberately timed by Lin Feng. At this time, the battle situation was a little strange. Tang Hao didn't know what was going on, but he didn't come out. At this time, if Lin Feng didn't make some noise, Tang San might be taken away. Bibi Dong, your martial soul hall is very good. You actually have ideas about my disciple. Doctor Strange shouted, and the soul rings on his body directly appeared. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red. Like Bibi Dong, he was also a titled Doloa with 100,000-year soul ring. This was something that no one expected. At this time, when they saw the red soul ring, they were all shocked. His martial soul was a big blood-red net. At this time, after summoning it, he directly threw it out and pulled the 3 titled Doloa to his side. With just one move, everyone could see some clues. This Doctor Strange strength was extremely strong. Bibi Dong's face also changed, but she didn't panic and directly let out a long whistle. In the next second, a long whistle came from the high mountain in response. This voice was full of energy and quickly rushed to the square. Dugu Bo seemed to have thought of something, and his face changed drastically. It's the worship of the Martial Soul Hall. I didn't expect that even a worship would be involved. Today, Tang San will be captured. Yu Guan chuckled and attacked again. Originally, everyone had a glimmer of hope because of the appearance of Doctor Strange. He showed his invincible power and pulled the 3 titled Doloa to his side. At this time, they were entangled together. But now, a worship of the Martial Soul Hall had joined the battle, and the situation of the battlefield was about to be reversed in an instant. The worship hall was actually not a secret. After the Soul Masters of the Martial Soul Hall reached rank 96 and above, they could choose to enter the worship hall. After becoming a worship, they would usually concentrate on comprehending the higher levels and would not participate in some of the battles of the Martial Soul Hall. Therefore, under normal circumstances, no matter what happened, no one would think that a worship would be involved. But now, a worship of such a powerful titled Doloa had joined the battle. Dugu Bo and the others were a little desperate because of this. However, Tang San and Xiao Wu didn't panic at all. Even Dai Mubai and the others weren't very nervous. Because just now, Lin Feng had told them that Mr. Destroy was nearby and would appear in an emergency. They believed that as long as Mr. Destroy showed up, the Martial Soul Hall would be crushed. Therefore, they didn't panic at all. On the contrary, they were quite relaxed. Not far away, Flanders's Golden Holy Dragon was fighting against 2 elders at the same time with the help of Ning Rongrong's full power. At the moment, Doloa from the Martial Soul Hall was sneaking toward Tang San. In the dark, Ghost Doloa was trying to take advantage of this opportunity to go around the Golden Holy Dragon and capture Lin Feng and Tang San. That worship of the Martial Soul Hall had also arrived at the plaza. Bibi Dong shouted, "Master Ghost Leopard, please capture Lin Feng and the other 2 wanted criminals." Ghost Leopard Doloa was the 6th worship of the Martial Soul Hall, a rank 96 agility type, titled Battle Pet Warrior. He was very powerful. The Ghost Leopard Doloa's original mission was to hold Doctor Strange back. However, there were already 3 titled Doloa holding him back. It was better for the Ghost Leopard Doloa to capture Tang San and the others first. Yes. Ghost Leopard Doloa didn't say anything else. He nodded and went straight toward Tang San. "A little leopard and a little devil. How dare you hurt my son?" A low and domineering voice suddenly sounded, as if it had exploded in the air. "You're just a little leopard and a little devil. How dare you hurt my son?" Along with the shout, a tall black figure appeared. He was wearing ragged clothes and was holding a sledgehammer in his hand. At this moment, he directly smashed toward Ghost Leopard. Bang! With a muffled sound, huge waves of soul power collided. In the blink of an eye, the Ghost Leopard and the Ghost Dolua were both sent flying. Tang Hao had appeared. Chapter 385. Dad, is it really you? The moment he saw Tang Hao, Tang San's eyes were filled with tears. It had been 7 years. Ever since he left the Holy Spirit Village, Tang San hadn't seen Tang Hao again. Now that they met again, Tang San burst into tears. However, Tang Hao didn't have time to say anything to Tang San, because when he appeared, Bibi Dong's gaze instantly fell on him. He didn't dare to be distracted. "Tang Hao, how dare you come out to court death?" Bibi Dong shouted, her tone full of anger. She had thought about Tang Hao's appearance before. She was not too surprised when she found out that it was Tang Hao. After all, so what if Tang Hao came? Now that there were 9 titled Dolua from the Martial Spirit Hall, there were dozens of soul sages and soul Dolua around. It was easy to enter, but difficult to leave. However, because of Tang Hao's appearance, the Martial Spirit Hall elders who were originally attacking quickly retreated and gathered together. Even the 3 elders who were originally fighting on Doctor Strange's side quickly retreated. Haotian Dolua was the #1 genius in the world of Soul Masters. Back then, the Martial Spirit Hall had sent several people to surround and kill him, but in the end 2 of them were killed. From this, it could be seen how fierce his combat strength was. Therefore, at this moment they were very careful, afraid that they would be killed by his hammer. In fact, the reason why Tang Hao was fierce was mainly because he had extremely high control of soul power and had created several extremely powerful self-created soul skills. The disorder-splitting wind hammer technique and the Great Sumeru hammer that connected 9 soul rings were all manifestations of extremely high control of soul power. Especially the Great Sumeru hammer, when the soul rings exploded, it could even directly increase the power of the soul skill by several times, close to a martial soul fusion skill. Therefore, Tang Hao was especially fierce, even comparable to Lin Feng. It shouldn't be a problem for him to fight 1 against 4 Martial Spirit Hall elders who were around rank 93. In the original work, he fought 1 against 7 because he was attacking the Pontiff's Palace, which was the face of the Martial Spirit Hall. Bibi Dong and the others couldn't dodge, and could only take this blow head-on. Otherwise, if Tang Hao destroyed the Pontiff's Hall, the Martial Spirit Hall would lose face. It was precisely because of this that Tang Hao was able to seize the opportunity to escape. Now that so many Soul Masters had sealed off the plaza, it would be difficult for Tang Hao to escape. "Bibi Dong, you're still not strong enough to avenge your teacher today." Tang Hao looked at the 9 people in front of him without the slightest hint of fear on his face. As he spoke, his soul rings quickly appeared on his body. Just like Doctor Strange and Bibi Dong's, there were 2 yellow, 2 purple, 4 black, and 1 red. Today, the 3rd titled Dolua with 100,000-year soul ring had appeared. Tang Hao didn't waste any more words. He knew that things would change if he delayed. After his soul ring appeared, he immediately unleashed his martial soul true body. "You have 9 titled battle pet warriors, Dolua. No wonder the Martial Spirit Palace is the most powerful force on the continent. But so what? You can't stop me today." As he shouted, the clear sky hammer in Tang Hao's hand rose into the air. Following a flash of black light, the clear sky hammer grew in the wind and instantly became a huge hammer that was 100 meters long. The hammer's head was like a small mountain in the air. To be honest, this was the largest martial soul true body that Lin Feng had seen so far. Tang Hao's control of his soul power was very high. In fact, he was even better than Lin Feng. After all, he had lived for so many years, and there was still a gap between him and Lin Feng. Just as everyone's attention was focused on Tang Hao, the 100,000-year soul ring on his body suddenly lit up, and the entire clear sky hammer was dyed red. What a pontiff's hall! Today, I'll destroy your pontiff's hall. Ha ha! Tang Hao laughed arrogantly. After that, the huge hammer smashed directly toward the pontiff's hall behind the plaza. At this moment, a huge amount of soul power filled the entire plaza. Soul masters below the soul sage level were suppressed to the point that they couldn't move. The air seemed to have frozen. Tang Hao, how dare you! After discovering Tang Hao's intentions, Bibi Dong shouted sternly. Originally, when she saw Tang Hao make his move, she thought that he was overestimating himself and wanted to fight 9 people alone. Now, it seemed that he wasn't stupid. Gui Ju and Gui Bao, you guys stop these people. The rest of you, follow me to block. Bibi Dong shouted loudly and led the other 5 elders to meet the huge hammer to block this attack. Gui Bao directly charged toward Tang Hao. Gui Doluo and Zhu Doluo called out to the Soul Doluo, Soul Sages, and so on, ready to block everyone. That's right. In order to prevent any unforeseen events, Bibi Dong directly wanted to block everyone. At this moment, Tang Hao's full-strength attack collided with Bibi Dong's group of 6. Boom! A loud sound rang out, as if the heavens were punishing them. The entire martial spirit city trembled from this loud sound. Those soul masters below the soul sage level directly fainted. The weaker ones nearby were even seriously injured. Sect Master Ning, come out! Tang Hao shouted. At the same time, he retracted his giant hammer and smashed it towards Gui Bao. The golden holy dragon controlled by Dugubo and the others also faced Yu Guan and Gui Mei. In fact, Tang Hao should have left the moment Tang San won the championship. When the elders of the martial spirit hall surrounded them, it was actually too late. However, the more he looked at Tang San, the more he looked like Ian, so he fell into his memories. By the time he came back to his senses, the elders had already surrounded him. At that moment, Tang Hao knew that things were bad. If he rushed out directly, it would definitely not work. What he wanted to do was to sneak attack the pontiff's palace and force Bibi Dong and the others to return to defense. Then, he would shout for Dugubo to take Tang San and the others away from afar. However, that was not safe. He might fall into extreme danger. At the same time, it was safer for Dugubo to save Tang San and the others. This was the last choice, but at that time, Tang Hao could only think of this plan. Fortunately, Dr. Strange made a move later on, which gave him the idea of directly making a move. When the time came, he would rescue Ning Fengji and Dusty Heart. With Ning Fengji's buff, they would have the strength to fight. And now, the plan was going smoothly. When he forced Bibi Dong and the others away, and then faced Ghost Leopard, Dusty Heart also took the opportunity to bring Ning Fengji to Shrek Academy. Lin Feng was watching everything unfold before his eyes. Now, he was secretly creating clones of himself and merging with those people. At this moment, the chaotic battle was about to begin. He was secretly setting up a plan on both sides, ready to fight at any time to gain experience. At this moment, if Bibi Dong and the others had too much of an advantage, his identity as Thanos would appear. And if Tang Hao and the others wanted to run, then sorry, Dr. Strange would make a move and stop them. That's right. Lin Feng wanted to create a character for Dr. Strange that loved to fight. He would not stand on anyone's side. No matter who you were, he would fight. It was not easy to plan for so long and make a group of people fight. How could they run away at the last minute? That would not do. He had to collect protection fees. All the experts present today, not only titled Doluo, Soul Sages, and even the unconscious Soul Emperor, Lin Feng's clones would have to be pulled up and beaten up. Only by earning so much experience points would he be able to live up to his expectations. Just as Lin Feng was thinking about this, the situation on the field quickly changed. Bibi Dong and the others blocked Tang Hao's attack. Their faces were slightly red, but they were fine. At this moment, they were standing in front of the field. Ghost Leopard was hammered by Tang Hao again. When he saw Dusty Heart and Ning Fengji coming over, he did not dare to stay any longer and quickly retreated. Ghost Doloa and Chrysanthemum Doloa were entangled with Dugu Bo and the Golden Holy Dragon. There were many Soul Doloa and Soul Sages on that side. With their help, Dugu Bo and Flanders were suppressed. Fortunately, Ning Fengji rushed over at this moment. The moment he landed, he unleashed his government soul skill. Flanders's and Dugu Bo's strength soared, temporarily stabilizing the situation. At the same time, Ning Fengji's soul skill shone on Tang Hao's body, making him feel a little better. In fact, Tang Hao had suffered serious injuries in that battle. Even after so many years, his injuries had not healed. Just now, he had fought 1 against 5, and the blood in his body was surging. His old injuries almost relapsed. Fortunately, Ning Fengji came over and temporarily suppressed the surging blood in his body. Furthermore, with Ning Fengji's buff, Tang Hao felt that he should be able to fight for a while. Hao Tiandolo, I've heard a lot about you. Ning Fengji came to Tang Hao's side and smiled. Thank you, Sect Master Ning and Kendoluo, for your help. I can't thank you enough. Tang Hao cupped his hands politely to the two of them. Don't mention it. Rongrong is also in the Shrek Academy. I can't leave her alone, Ning Fengji said. Although he could still smile, Ning Fengji knew that the situation was very serious. If he could not escape quickly, he would be finished when his soul power was exhausted. Prepare to break out. If I don't have enough soul power, it will be dangerous. Ning Fengji's face was solemn. That's right, we have to leave quickly. Dusty Heart also nodded. Tang Hao glanced at Tang San, who wanted to come over, and then said, I'll use my full strength again later. I should be able to hold back half of them. You guys take the opportunity to take your people and leave quickly. At this time, on the other side, Dr. Strange dragged 2 titled Battle Pet warriors over to fight with Dolu. If one observed carefully, they would find that those 2 people had not fought with Dr. Strange before. Tang Hao could not figure out what this guy was thinking. He didn't communicate with them, but he was still helping them. At least he was fighting the people from the Martial Soul Hall. Dad, aren't you coming with us? Tang San asked anxiously. Tang Hao's words meant that he was going to stay behind to cover the retreat. This was undoubtedly the most dangerous situation. He was very worried. I'll catch up soon. Tang Hao said to Tang San, then said loudly, Get ready. Leave when you have the chance. With that said, he didn't have time to pay attention to Tang San. Tang Hao took action again because Ghost Leopard and the others were attacking again. Dusty Heart also took action. Otherwise, Tang Hao would not have been able to stop them all by himself. Today, none of you can escape. Bibi Dong shouted. The scepter in her hand glowed brightly. As a matter of fact, Bibi Dong hadn't exerted her full strength yet. She was only playing a supporting role. She had to hide for a while longer. Otherwise, if she showed too much strength, the 2 empires would directly oppose the Martial Soul Hall. By then, things would be terrible. After all, it was not realistic for the Martial Soul Hall to rule the continent. Apart from the influence of Soul Masters, they were not popular at all. That was to say, in the eyes of the common people, they only recognized the empires and did not care about the Martial Soul Hall. Therefore, it was not the best time for the Martial Soul Hall to rule. They had to wait for a few more years until the Martial Soul Hall had infiltrated the common people. That would be the best time. But at the moment, the Martial Soul Hall had the absolute advantage. It would be fine even if Bibi Dong didn't use her full strength. At this moment, under the radiance of the scepter, the strength of the elders of the Martial Soul Hall increased a little. Especially Ghost Leopard, who had been hammered twice by Tang Hao, was furious. At this moment, he was going all out, entangling Tang Hao's hammer. Tang Hao was even fiercer. With the support of Ning Fengji, not only did he entangle Ghost Leopard, but he also entangled Qin Yun Dolu. As for Dusty Heart, it was also 1 against 2. Wing Doluo and White Doluo found him. At this moment, the martial soul halls titled Doluo and Bibi Dong, who was a powerful existence with 100,000-year soul ring. What Tang Hao was thinking at this moment was to find an opportunity to beat back a few people in an instant and then buy time for the others to escape. Perhaps he would die here, but to be honest, as long as Tang San could survive, he would have no regrets. Tang Hao saw that Tang San was a genius. He firmly believed that as long as Tang San didn't die, he would definitely avenge him. At this moment, on the side of Shrek's 7 monsters, Tang San said anxiously, "Feng Gu, when will Mr. Destroy come out? My dad can't hold on much longer." When the soul power exploded just now, Lin Feng blocked the impact for them, so no one fainted. At this moment, the others were no longer relaxed, and their faces were full of anxiety. After all, Bibi Dong was rushing towards them, and the others were also entangled. It was very dangerous. Lin Feng also knew that the situation was a little tilted. The backup plan he had arranged earlier was about to be used. Thinking of this, he pointed at the Avengers and said with a smile, "Look, isn't Mr. Destroy here?" Everyone looked in the direction of his finger, and they didn't know when Thanos' figure appeared outside the square. The main thing was that there were more than 30 people behind him. They were all wearing similar clothes with the word Marvel on them. The others didn't feel anything when they saw these people, but Xueqinghe, who was pretending to be unconscious at the VIP stand, was shocked. Those were actually all from the Marvel family. Then their strength, as if in response to Xueqinghe's thoughts, Thanos came to the square in the next second. Behind him, the 30 or so people all released their soul rings. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. 8 perfect soul rings. These people were all strong people on the level of Soul Dolu. That powerful aura instantly attracted the attention of everyone present. Flanders, Dugubo, and the others were ecstatic. "Mr. Destroy is here. This won't be a big problem." Ning Rongrong and the others were even more excited. "When Mr. Destroy is here, he will definitely beat the Martial Spirit Palace until they piss their pants." Ning Fengji and Tang Hao also breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, they were a little puzzled. Wasn't Thanos a loner? What was going on with these people? On Bibi Dong's side, he was shocked and angry at the same time. Were the Soul Masters patrolling on the city wall and inside the city fools? Thanos led more than 30 people to the front of the Pontiff's palace, and no one noticed? No, it shouldn't be that they didn't notice. There must be another reason. Bibi Dong wasn't stupid. He quickly realized that these people shouldn't have come in from the outside, but had already arrived in the city. Otherwise, it would be too ridiculous if no one noticed them. And just now, no one noticed how these 30 people appeared. It could only be said that they had a special hiding method. In this case, things were difficult. At this moment, the situation was very good for the Martial Spirit Palace. This group of people couldn't escape at all. There were more than a dozen Soul Dolois and more than 40 Soul Sages waiting outside. If this group of people wanted to escape, they would definitely be stopped. But now, more than 30 Soul Dolois had appeared, and Thanos was an extremely powerful titled Dolu. Things were going to be difficult. More importantly, there was a force on the continent of Dolois that had more than 30 Soul Dolois, and the Martial Spirit Palace didn't know anything about it. Soul Dolois could hide, but what about titled Dolois? Just the thought of it was enough to make one feel terrified. Bibi Dong was not afraid of this force's strength, but that she didn't know anything about it. The Sea God's Island was an extremely powerful force. There were several titled Dolois and many Soul Dolois, but Bibi Dong knew about this place. She had a rough idea. She didn't know anything about the force behind Thanos, and the unknown often made people afraid. At this moment, Slayer Lord was leading more than 30 Soul Dolu. His aura was monstrous as he rushed towards the plaza. If some of the weaker soul masters saw this scene, they would probably be so scared that they would lose their ability to perform. In fact, among the 30 or so people, only the 6 or 7 people at the front looked normal. The other 20 or so people at the back all looked a little dazed. Lin Feng couldn't control so many people at the same time. He could only switch between them with his divine sense and barely control them at the same time. This way, they might not be able to perform well, but it didn't matter. As long as they could fight with these soul Doloa and soul sages, they would still be able to gain experience points. Lin Feng summoned these people mainly to fight with those soul masters below soul Dolu. At the same time, he wanted the martial spirit hall to be afraid of the situation on the continent. This way, the martial spirit hall shouldn't dare to do anything big for a few years, and he could take advantage of this time to earn experience points on the continent. How dare you attack the people of my Marvel family? Martial Spirit Palace, how dare you? Slayer Overlord came directly to the square and shouted in a low voice. After saying that, he rushed to Doctor Strange's side and a long rod appeared in his hand. He easily injured the 2 Soul Dolua and trapped them. The situation on the battlefield was reversed in an instant. Originally, the Martial Spirit Hall had a big advantage. Now, as soon as Thanos appeared, he trapped the 2 Martial Spirit Hall elders. At the same time, his subordinates also joined the battle, reducing a lot of pressure on Dugubo and Flanders. Dugubo laughed and said, "You old chrysanthemum, I told you not to provoke the Shrek Academy. Mr. Destroy will deal with you. Now you know how powerful Mr. Destroy is." Yu Guan's face was very ugly. He wasn't in the mood to talk, but his attacks became more fierce. Dugubo felt the pressure and didn't have time to talk anymore. He could only fight with all his strength. Marvel family? Bibi Dong remembered this name. However, the current situation was not good for the Martial Spirit Hall. She thought for a while and suddenly let out a strange scream. At the same time, above the Pope's palace, at the top of the mountain, there was the even more noble Palace Dolu. The Martial Spirit Hall's high priest, Qian Daolu, was the master of the Dolua Palace. He was originally cultivating, but when he heard this sound, he suddenly opened his eyes. Something big happened in the Martial Spirit City? Bibi Dong asked him to make a move? That's right, Bibi Dong's special scream was used to ask Qian Daolu to make a move. It could only be used when the Martial Spirit Hall was in danger. Today, according to the situation, the Continental Elite Soul Master Academy tournament should be taking place. What could happen? Although he was confused, Qian Daolu still rushed outside. He and Bibi Dong didn't get along well, but that was because of personal reasons. In front of the Martial Spirit Hall, Qian Daolu cared more about the Martial Spirit Hall. Furthermore, because of the shameful things his son had done, Qian Daolu felt that he owed Bibi Dong. When Bibi Dong became the Pope, it had a lot to do with his secret support. However, he had never said these things to Bibi Dong. Bibi Dong hated the Qian family to the core. If it wasn't for the future of the Martial Spirit Hall, she wouldn't have called Qian Daolu. Who is she calling? In the square, everyone was puzzled when they saw Bibi Dong scream. Even Lin Feng was a little puzzled. Could it be that Bibi Dong wanted to call Qian Daolu out? Weren't the two of them at odds? Just as he was thinking about this, on the top of the mountain, an old man with an outstanding temperament stood in the air, and then suddenly attacked the square. This scene made Thanos' face change slightly. Qian Daolu, this guy really came out. Damn it. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Bibi Dong's face. The reason why she called Qian Daolu out was that she only had one purpose, and that was to capture everyone from the Marvel family. Such a powerful force that no one noticed under her nose was too terrifying. It was a great threat to the position of the Martial Spirit Hall. She had to figure it out. Everyone, retreat. At this moment, Thanos roared and directly attacked Bibi Dong, Ghost Leopard, and the others. The stick in his hand became extremely long, and the attack range included a group of people. At the same time, Doctor Strange, who was his external avatar, flew up into the sky and faced Qian Daolu. Lin Feng actually had a plan before and expected Qian Daolu to appear. He also had a complete response plan, so at this moment, he was just a little surprised and didn't panic at all. Chapter 386. The plan was simple. The Thousand Dao flow was strong, so Lin Feng's main body would not risk his life to fight it head-on. However, his avatar could give it a try. As long as there was experience, it didn't matter if his avatar died. Of course, in order to prevent himself from being instantly killed, his main body still had to plunder the experience points from Bibi Dong and the others. At the same time, Lin Feng had hidden quite a few avatars on Tang San and the others. After they left Martial Spirit City, Lin Feng would turn his avatar into an elder of the Martial Spirit Palace and start hunting down those people to earn experience points. Originally, the best situation would be to take all the experience points in the plaza and then return home to find their own mothers. After that, Lin Feng began to challenge titled Doloa and Soul Doloa all over the continent. He wanted to earn experience points for a period of time so that he could obtain a million-year soul ring. Now that the Thousand Dao flow had appeared, he could only give up some stability and take some risk. Of course, with the risks came high rewards. Whether or not he could grasp it depended on himself. At the moment, it would take about 10 seconds for the Thousand Dao flow to arrive. Lin Feng wanted to take advantage of this time to quickly obtain the experience points from the titled Doloa of the Martial Spirit Palace. After a loud shout, the rod in Thanos' hand became thick and long, covering the sky. He suddenly swung it forward, directly enveloping Bibi Dong, Ghost Leopard and the others. At the same time, he released all the soul skills of the Qianquan Blood Shadow Beast Skull. The power of spatial imprisonment and Blood Fiend instantly enveloped the space in front of them. These people were unable to care about anything else for a short period of time. 1 against 5, and it was a 1 against 5 head-on. With just this move, Thanos' strength was much stronger than Tang Hao's. At this moment, Tang Hao, Dusty Heart and the others took this opportunity to quickly run outside. They recognized the Thousand Dao flow and knew that they were no match for it. At this moment, escaping was the best choice. Otherwise, when the Thousand Dao flow arrived, it would be difficult for them to escape. With the people of the Marvel family holding them back, and Thanos showing his might, for a while, the people of the Martial Spirit Palace were all blocked. Bang! Thanos' staff directly smashed into the 5 people. For a moment, soul power surged, and its might was boundless. Originally, Thanos Lord's control technique could control a titled Doloa to death. However, it was unleashed on 5 titled Doloa at the same time, including Gue Leopard's consecrated elder and Bibi Dong. Under the collision of the 5 people's soul power, Thanos' soul skill only controlled them for less than a second, and then he completely broke free. Furthermore, the combined attack of the 5 of them crashed into Thanos, directly injuring him. However, Thanos did not panic at all. His life force circulated and his injuries were instantly healed. Damn it! None of you can leave today. Bibi Dong roared and unleashed his martial soul true body. Since he had already called out the Thousand Dao flow, it would be too embarrassing if he did not stay behind. At this moment, Bibi Dong could no longer hide. She had to make them stay behind. Her 7th soul ring shone brightly, and the projection of a spider appeared in the air. In the end, it solidified and cast a spider web towards the plaza. Bibi Dong saw that Tang Hao and Thanos were fighting 1 against 5, 1 against 9, and so on. She did not want to be outdone. She wanted to make everyone stay with her own strength. At the side, Ghost Leopard also unleashed his martial soul true body. His entire body turned into an almost transparent leopard, and his aura rose sharply. If it were Tang Hao, he might have been beaten to death in an instant. However, Thanos was not Tang Hao. He activated the wind invisibility on his wind dragon left leg bone, and his entire body turned into a gust of wind. Furthermore, the soul power in his body surged wildly, and this gust of wind instantly covered half of the plaza. In the next second, countless tornadoes appeared and enveloped everyone from the martial spirit palace. Titled Dolua, and Soul Sages were all trapped inside. At the same time, a small flame was released in the middle. Fourth soul skill, Blazing Sea of Fire. Ever since his fourth soul ring broke through to the 100,000-year level, Lin Feng had not truly unleashed his full strength. Today, he wanted to test its power. Following a flash of red light, this spark intertwined with the surrounding tornadoes. The wind helped the fire. In an instant, half of the plaza was turned into a sea of fire. "How dare you!" In the distance, Qian Daolu shouted. His eyes were about to pop out of their socket. This was in front of the Pontiff's palace in the center of Martial Spirit City. How dare someone set fire to the mountain? Damn it! Bibi Dong and the others' expressions changed drastically. Thanos' soul skills were too strong. Whether it was the wind or the fire, they were all ridiculously strong. At this moment, the fire and wind had spread across half of the plaza. The high-end fighting strength of the Martial Spirit Palace was included. The titled Dolua were still fine as they could resist the attacks, but the Soul Dolua and Soul Sages could die if they were left alone. "All elders, save them!" Bibi Dong shouted and ordered all the titled Dolua to save them. They had no choice but to save them. This fire was too strong. Soul Dolua probably wouldn't even last a minute. It would be good if the Soul Sages could last half a minute. If they did not save them, more than half of the higher-ups of the Martial Spirit Palace would be wiped out. This Thanos, this Marvel family, really ruined the plans of the Martial Spirit Palace. He originally thought that Thanos was a hidden expert, but it seemed that his initial analysis was completely wrong. At this moment, Bibi Dong completely hated this Marvel family. While the elders of the Martial Spirit Palace were saving people, Thanos' overlord was still persevering, continuing to entangle with these people, and fighting for a long time. As for his clones, they were also looking for soul masters from the Martial Soul Hall to fight. At the same time, Doctor Strange also faced Qian Daolu. This old fellow was too ferocious. From afar, the space around Doctor Strange was imprisoned. At the same time, Qian Daolu punched over. Thanos' actions had completely angered Qian Daolu. At this moment, he released his angel martial soul and its pressure filled the entire martial spirit city. He did not release his soul ring because that would only make the two empires more fearful. Even if he did not use his soul ring, just the power of his martial soul was extremely terrifying. With just one punch, Doctor Strange felt that he could not dodge and could only take it head-on. This feeling, it was as if he was directly locked on and could not dodge at all. Is this the power of another level? It feels so magical. Although he was shocked, Doctor Strange's hands did not slow down. He activated his sixth soul skill and thunder rumbled. The moment Qian Daolu punched over, a bolt of lightning struck down from the sky and instantly arrived above his head. The power of thunder was like a heavenly punishment, forcing Qian Daolu to take a step back. You have some ability. When did such a person appear in the world of soul masters? Qian Daolu was stunned and asked. Of course, his hands did not stop moving and he punched towards Doctor Strange again. The latter did not answer and used his full strength to fight with Qian Daolu. At this moment, Bibi Dong was already putting out the fire in the square. For safety, Lin Feng's main body did not dare to stay any longer after seeing that Tang San and the others had left. He directly teleported and disappeared from the square. At the same time, those clones quickly began to retreat and disappeared around the corner. As for the 7 members of the Avengers, they had disappeared when the competition began. The few cardinals who were watching them had long lost track of them. At this moment, the only one left in the square was Lin Feng's incarnation, Dr. Strange. Qian Daolu seemed to want to see his strength, and did not use his full strength. However, the surrounding space was sealed. The martial spirit palace wanted to capture him alive. That's right, this was also Bibi Dong's current thought. Tang San and the others had run away. Even if there was a threat in the future, it was a matter for the future. The force behind this Avengers was the Marvel family. This force was the most important thing for the Martial Spirit Palace to deal with at the moment. Thanos and Doctor Strange were two powerful titled battle pet warriors. They also had such a genius under their command and a large number of souls under Dolu. This Marvel family must be very strong. If the Martial Spirit Palace did not figure it out, how could they be at ease? Now, this Doctor Strange was considered a high-level member of the Marvel family. As long as they captured him and interrogated him, they would be able to get a lot of information. The reason why Bibi Dong did not try to stop the others from escaping was mainly because they still had Doctor Strange in their hands. Qian Daolu trapped him. At this time, the other elders also rescued people and flew into the sky. Doctor Strange was surrounded. As far as the Martial Spirit Palace was concerned, there was no way he could escape. If he could escape from the encirclement of so many titled battle pet warriors, the Martial Spirit Palace would lose face. Doctor Strange, give up. Stop your futile struggle. As long as you tell us everything you know about the Marvel family, the Martial Spirit Palace will spare your life. Yu Guan shouted. At this moment, Doctor Strange was undoubtedly making a futile struggle. It would be better for him to surrender. Ha! Doctor Strange chuckled and ignored them. He continued to fight with Qian Daolu. He could tell that Qian Daolu was deliberately testing his strength. That was why they did not use their full strength. At the same time, they also wanted to capture him alive. This was good. He could fight for a while longer and gain more experience points. As for capturing him? Dream on. As he thought about this, Doctor Strange expanded the range of his lightning attack and enveloped all the titled Dolua around him. Is this guy crazy? Qian Daolu was already exhausted. If it weren't for the fact that Qian Daolu wanted to see his strength and capture him alive, he would have killed him already. How dare he provoke a group of people at this time? Was he courting death? Although they thought so, they did not dare to counterattack. Bibi Dong just said that he wanted to capture him alive. At this moment, everyone could only retreat. However, as soon as they retreated, that guy followed up. Even the Qian Daolia's attack was only a casual defense. Doctor Strange's clone was left behind mainly because he wanted to achieve two effects. The first was to gain experience points and estimate the Qian Daolia's strength. From the looks of it now, this fellow was very strong. Even without using any soul skills or soul rings, he was still able to easily suppress him. There was an inexplicable force that suppressed him. If he used weapons or soul skills, this clone would have died. It could be said that the gap between Lin Feng and Qian Daolu was quite big. It was so big that it was ridiculous. Lin Feng estimated that if Qian Daolu went all out, his main body and clone would be instantly killed. Fortunately, his main body did not stay for long. Otherwise, it would have been very dangerous. The second plan was to stop Qian Daolu from chasing after Tang San and the others. This was obviously achieved. Tang San and the others had safely escaped, and Qian Daolu did not chase after them. Actually, it was fine if he did not stop Qian Daolu, because he did not want to chase after them. Although Bibi Dong called him out, Qian Daolu would not go too far away from the Martial Spirit Hall. This was because he had to protect the Angel God's inheritance and guard against Bibi Dong. Brat, are you really courting death? Qian Daolu was surprised when he realized that Doctor Strange dared to provoke others. You're the one courting death. Doctor Strange chuckled and attacked even more fiercely. Space was sealed, and his control-type soul skills could not control so many people. He could not escape, so Doctor Strange only wanted to fight more fiercely. Your Majesty the Pope, this guy is resisting too fiercely. Should we attack? Guei Mei asked. The few of them went up to surround him. Logically speaking, when they saw so many titled Doloa surrounding him, he would definitely surrender in order to survive. However, Doctor Strange did not surrender at all. He charged wherever there were more people, as if he did not care about his life. They were not confident that they could capture him alive, which was very troublesome. Bibi Dong frowned. It was already good enough that she called Qian Daolu out. It was impossible for her to order him now. Among everyone present, only Qian Daolu had the ability to capture him alive. The others, including herself, would find it difficult to succeed. Just as she was thinking about this, Doctor Strange attacked even more fiercely. He was fighting with no regard for his life, crazily charging towards them. This scene made Qian Daolu frown. Was this guy really not afraid of death? Where did this person from the Marvel family come from? Why was he fighting so fiercely? Forget it, let's not think about it. Let's capture him. We'll talk about it after we capture him. With that thought, a black soul ring appeared on Qian Daolia's body. Then, a black light suddenly shone. In the next second, the wings on his back suddenly burst open. Feathers flew all over the sky and instantly wrapped around Doctor Strange. There was no way to dodge at all. The speed was too fast. In an instant, Doctor Strange was surrounded by these feathers. At this point, Lin Feng also knew that there was nothing he could do. At this moment, without saying anything, the soul power in his body quickly condensed and condensed crazily. In a short moment, an extremely terrifying soul power fluctuation came from his body. Bibi Dong's expression changed drastically. Everyone, retreat. He's going to self-destruct. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed drastically, and they all retreated. Lunatic! Qian Daolu also cursed in a low voice and quickly retreated. In the instant that everyone retreated, enormous soul force undulations spread out from the center of the layer of feathers. Boom! A loud bang resounded throughout the entire martial spirit city, and a soul power storm swept out rapidly. Chapter 387. Doctor Strange's self-destruction was extremely powerful. Needless to say, the sound not only resounded throughout the city, but even Tang San and the others, who were escaping outside the martial spirit city, could hear it. It was mainly due to the damage caused by the explosion. The few titled Doloa who were close to it were all seriously injured, and those who ran fast were also slightly injured. Fortunately, they weren't seriously injured and would be fine after some rest. As for the low-level soul masters nearby, they had already been taken care of, especially the representatives of the Star Luo Empire. They were moved into the city by the Martial Spirit Palace and were not injured. As for the people from the Heaven Do Empire, they seemed to have all escaped. Prince Xueqinghe was even taken away by Dusty Heart, leaving only the people from the Star Luo Empire. These were all trivial matters. The scary thing was that Bibi Dong couldn't understand why Doctor Strange would self-destruct. No one from the Martial Spirit Palace wanted to kill him, but he self-destructed? Did he not value his own life anymore? It was not easy to cultivate to the level of a titled Dolu. Usually, titled Dolu wouldn't kill each other if there was no deep hatred between them. At this moment, Doctor Strange's self-destruction really surprised everyone. At the same time, Bibi Dong was also very shocked. What kind of power was this Marvel family? What kind of charm did they have to make a powerful titled Doloa choose to self-destruct in order to not betray them? To be honest, a titled Doloa was willing to give up his life to hide a power. Just thinking about this made Bibi Dong shudder. Because the titled Doloa of the Martial Spirit Palace couldn't reach such a level. When Ing Luan was caught last time, he didn't self-destruct. After being threatened with poison by Dugabo, he spilled everything. In comparison, this Marvel family was definitely a big enemy of the Martial Spirit Palace. They were too cohesive. On the side, Qian Lu saw Doctor Strange self-destruct and was stunned. However, he didn't say anything. He looked at Bibi Dong and the other elders and flew directly to the top of the mountain. He wouldn't interfere in the affairs of the Martial Spirit Palace. Now that there was nothing else, he would go back. As for the Marvel family, unless the other party attacked Martial Spirit City, he wouldn't make a move. After Qian Daolu left, the healing-type soul masters of the Martial Soul Hall came over to treat the elders. An hour later, in the main hall of the Pontiff's palace, Bibi Dong held a meeting here, and all the soul masters above the level of Soul Dolua came. Everyone wore solemn expressions on their faces. On one hand, the Martial Soul Hall had been thoroughly humiliated today. None of the dozens of Soul Dolua and a powerful titled Dolua had been discovered, and they had managed to sneak up to the Supreme Pontiff's palace. Then, in front of a group of elders, he set a fire and a gust of wind to burn down half of the mountain. Now, the area in front of the Pope's palace was completely bare. Although someone had gone to deal with it, it was obviously not something that could be done in a short time. The Martial Spirit Palace had really lost its face. On the other hand, a mysterious and powerful Marvel family had suddenly appeared on the mainland. This was something they had never noticed before. This made everyone feel great pressure. And there was one more thing. They had now completely offended the Seven Treasures Glazed sect. In the Heaven Do Empire, 2 of the 3 upper sects had become enemies. The remaining Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan probably didn't have a good impression of the Martial Spirit Palace. Under such circumstances, the Martial Spirit Palace had to deal with it properly. Otherwise, the entire Heaven Do Empire might boycott the Martial Spirit Palace. From today onwards, the Martial Spirit Palace will start a thorough investigation of this Marvel family. I want to know everything about it. Bibi Dong sat on the throne and said with a dignified face, "Rearrange the intelligence network in Heaven Do City. Elder Ghost and Elder Ju, you two go to the Seven Treasures Glazed sect and apologize on behalf of the Martial Spirit Palace. Also, pay a visit to the Heaven Do Empire's royal family." The Seven Treasures Glazed sect was the current #1 sect in the world and was very close to the royal family. The Martial Spirit Palace still needed to make up for the loss today. As for whether the other party would appreciate it or not, it depended on the situation. If the Marvel family made a move, there might be a big change in the Heaven Do Empire. It wasn't impossible for them to attack the Martial Spirit Palace. On the other hand, if the Martial Spirit Palace didn't do anything, Yu Guan and Gue Mei would go, which would be considered as the Martial Spirit Palace taking the initiative to give them a way out. After all, the Martial Spirit Palace was still very strong. The Seven Treasures Glazed sect couldn't deal with them alone. The Heaven Do Empire also had to guard against the Star Luo Empire, so they couldn't attack the Martial Spirit Palace. As long as Ning Fengji wasn't stupid, he should be able to give them a way out. "Yes, Pope. Lord Pope." Yu Guan and Gue Mei both replied. Under normal circumstances, the other elders of the Martial Spirit Palace would say something and doubt Bibi Dong's decision. However, the situation was critical now. Furthermore, Bibi Dong had displayed his 900,000-year soul ring. That powerful strength deterred them, so they didn't say anything at this moment. Everyone else, stay in the Martial Spirit City and guard against attacks. Bibi Dong continued. Yes. Everyone immediately responded. Bibi Dong definitely had arrangements for the specific details, but generally speaking, these were the main directions of the Martial Spirit Palace now. Guarding against the attacks of experts in the Martial Spirit City, dealing with the situation in the Heaven Do Empire, and finally investigating the Marvel family. This was also the most important point. Only after figuring out the situation of the Marvel family could their Martial Spirit Palace be at ease to do something else. Otherwise, this Marvel family would be like a mountain in front of them, blocking the path of the Martial Spirit Palace. Just as the Martial Spirit Palace was having a meeting, on the other side, Lin Feng had already arrived at the main group. For a long time, Lin Feng had been very curious about what would happen to his main body if something happened to his avatar. Until an hour ago, he experienced it. When his avatar self-destructed, his head was a little dizzy for a moment, and it was very painful. It took him about 2 seconds to recover. This was very terrifying. It was about 1 or 2 seconds of absent-mindedness. If his main body was in battle at that time, this little bit of time would be fatal. Fortunately, Lin Feng was not stupid and let his main body leave the scene in advance. After that, he immediately swapped places with the avatars beside Tang San and the others and returned to the main group. Then, it was the scene of the Martial Spirit Palace's elder chasing after them. After more than half an hour, Lin Feng took all the experience points from Tang Hao, Dusty Heart, and the others. During the chase, because they were afraid that the 1,000 streams would catch up and catch them all in one fell swoop, and because of the huge commotion in the Martial Spirit City, the group split up and fled for their own safety. When Thanos and the Martial Spirit Palace attacked, the aftershock of the soul power was too strong, and Lin Feng did not protect Tang San and the others, so he fainted at that time. As for Xueqinghe, he pretended to be unconscious before, and after Dusty Heart took him out of the Martial Spirit City, he woke up. At this time they split up, so there were no problems. Ning Fengji, Dusty Heart, Ning Rongrong, and Xueqinghe were on one side as they rushed towards Heaven Do City. The 7 Treasures Glazed Sect and the Martial Spirit Palace could be considered to have met. They were afraid that the Martial Spirit Palace would launch a surprise attack on the sect, so they immediately rushed back. The 4 of them were extremely fast and left the main group. In fact, Xueqinghe really wanted to stay because he felt that it was better to be with Lin Feng. At this time, the Marvel family had come out, so he felt that he could gain a lot of benefits by having a good talk. However, because of his identity, he really could not seize this opportunity, so he could only leave with Ning Fengji and the others. As for Tang Hao, he was more straightforward. After chatting with everyone for a while, he left with Tang San. He was quite excited after seeing the Blue-Silver Emperor on Tang San's body. At this moment, he had a lot of things to say to Tang San, and he also wanted to take him somewhere, so he left in a hurry. In the end, only the main group was left. There was Flanders's group, as well as Fatty, Dai Mubai, and Zhu Zhuqing. Right, the few people from Oakland Academy were also with them, but they quickly separated. They were very smart. At this time, there was absolutely no benefit for them to be with Shrek. Separating was the best choice. At this time, Flanders's group was in a small forest 50 kilometers away from Martial Spirit City, heading north. Flanders grabbed Ma Hongjun and Oscar, Lu Erlong grabbed Grandmaster and substitute student Jiang Zhu, Zhao Wuji carried Dai Mubai, and he also carried Tai Long and Huang Yuan. As for Xiao Wu and Zhu Zhuqing, they were both with Lin Feng. At that time, the 2 of them were closest to Lin Feng, so he casually grabbed them and ran. He really did not think much of it. Dugu Bo caught up from behind and said, "It's okay. Let's rest for a while. We should have shaken them off." Other than Feng Huai's group, the other 3 sides were being chased by the elders of the Martial Spirit Hall. Fortunately, each side had a titled Soul Master, Doluo, which gave them a chance to escape. Dugu Bo had been following behind them earlier to prevent the elders from chasing after them. Now that he had caught up, there was most likely no danger. "Okay, everyone rest for half an hour." Flanders panted. Escaping from Martial Spirit City wasn't a smooth journey. There were many Soul Doluo and Soul Sages in the city who tried to stop them. If Tang Hao, Chen Xin, and the others hadn't been so fierce, they might have been left behind. Even so, breaking out of the city consumed a lot of their energy. After leaving the city, they had been running in an extremely tense state. They even had to bring people along, so they had used up more than half of their energy. With an order, everyone sat down. Lin Feng did not do anything out of the ordinary. Dugu Bo walked over and asked, "Mr. Destroy will be fine, right?" Not long after they left the city, Lin Feng's avatar self-destructed. The sound and power at that time shocked everyone. However, because they were running for their lives, they did not think much of it. After some time, the elders of the Martial Spirit Hall came chasing after them, but they still did not see Thanos. Dugu Bo was a little worried. However, the elders kept him busy at that time, so he did not have time to ask Lin Feng. That was why it had been delayed until now. Don't worry. Mr. Destroy is so strong. How could anything happen to him? Lin Feng said with a smile. At this time, Lin Feng was very excited. The reason was very simple. After this operation, his experience points had increased by more than 1 billion. That's 1 billion yuan, you know. In the first half of the year, he had only earned 1 billion experience points. In just half an hour, he had earned as much as he had in the first half of the year. It seemed that he had made the right choice to scheme against the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament. That's true. Mr. Destroy is invincible. He will definitely be fine. Dugu Bo trusted Thanos very much. He did not doubt him at all. The others were quickly recovering their soul power. At this time, only Lin Feng and Dugu Bo still had the strength to speak. Lin Feng was now thinking about his next plan. With such a huge plan in place, he earned 1 billion experience points. Next, Lin Feng's plan was to start roaming the entire continent. The tracking devices that he had placed on the elite soul masters and students were about to start working. In this way, he did not have to return to Heaven Do City now. He had to leave with Xiao Wu first. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng said to Dugu Bo, "After this, you will escort the dean and the others back. Mr. Destroy sent me a message earlier. Now that we have graduated, he wants to bring me to a place. I have to rush over with Xiao Wu first." After hearing this, Flanders and the others immediately gathered around. Dugu Bo was also shocked. "Mr. Destroy is not coming?" Flanders also hurriedly said, "Xiao Feng, are you and Xiao Wu leaving too?" 2 of Shrek's 7 monsters had left. Ning Rongrong was still fine, as she was in the 7 treasures glazed sect. Tang San had been taken away by Tang Hao. At that time, because the elders were chasing after him, they did not even have time to say anything. Now that Lin Feng and Xiao Wu were leaving, Flanders and the others felt a little empty in their hearts. After these 2 left, only 4 of Shrek's 7 monsters were left. Furthermore, they could also see that Zhu Zhuqing and Dai Mubai would be leaving after waking up. The group did not even have time to have a farewell meal. It was too sudden. That's right. Mr. Destroy is looking for me. Xiao Wu and I have to find Tang San, so we don't have to go back. Lin Feng nodded. But, Dean, it's time to go. Mubai and Takechi should be waking up soon. It'll be too late if we don't leave now. Lin Feng interrupted Flanders and then looked at Dugu Bo. "Mr. Destroy said that you should stay in Shrek Academy for now. When the time is right, he will go and find you. By the way, Mr. Destroy also said that the Martial Spirit Palace should not dare to cause trouble for Shrek Academy. If they do, you should tell them that you are from the Marvel family." After today's incident, as long as Bibi Dong was not a fool, he would not dare to touch Shrek Academy before Thanos returned to Heaven Do City. After all, they had no way to find out the strength of the Marvel family. They would only dare to make a move after they figured out the situation. Otherwise, if the Martial Spirit Palace dared to send people to attack Shrek Academy today, the Marvel family would dare to attack the Martial Spirit Branch Palaces all over the 2 empires tomorrow. Of course, Lin Feng's deterrence could not only be based on today's battle. In the future, he would release news about the Marvel family from time to time. In this way, nothing would happen for a few years. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.